now go to item 3 on our agenda, which are ceremonial items. We're glad you're here. It's been a long time since we've had full council chambers, so this feels good. Thanks for being here today. We'll start our meeting this evening with an invocation and follow that with the pledges to the American and the Texas flag. Our invocation tonight will be led by Pastor Rod Lindley, who's with he's the pastor at Oakwood United Methodist Church. And following his prayer, the Mayor Pro Tem will lead us in the pledges. Preacher, if you'd come forward, if everyone would stand.
Mayor, thank you for the invitation and to be here. I know that I represent not only our church, but the churches throughout the city of Lubbock. And we want you to know that we are praying for you, each one of you, that God would bless you, keep you, and God would shine his face upon you. Let us pray. Lord God, we give you thanks and praise for this day that you have blessed us with. Thank you, Lord, for the city of Lubbock, for all of its successes, all of its victories, and all of its challenges. And God, we give this moment, this hour to you, so that you may again shine upon us. Lord, thank you that we live in a community that honor achievements, and Lord, that blesses others. And may we continue to do that with all of our entire being. We will always give you the praise, give you the glory, and give you the honor. In your name, we do pray. Amen.
Amen. Will you please join us in the pledges to the American and Texas flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, so we have 3 special recognitions tonight. We're going to do these in a little different order. We get a unique opportunity tonight to recognize an employee that's retiring. And we can't recognize every employee that retires, but it's very rare that we have one that makes it around here, makes it 40 times around the track. And we've got one. And Eva Smith is our vital statistics manager. And we have a special recognition for her tonight. So Eva, why don't you come forward, and I'm going to let your boss make a few comments, and then I'm going to read the special recognition. Eva works for Becky Garza, who's our city secretary. Becky, would you please?
So a year ago, Eva, this time of the year, said to me, I'm retiring next year. And I really didn't worry about it because I think the prior 12 years, Eva had been telling me she was going to work one more year. And then she said, no, I really mean it this time. And I still didn't think she was going to do it. I asked her in January of this year, are you sure you're retiring? So Eva has done a wonderful job. Eva, I want to thank you for your dedication to our department. We won so many awards under her leadership, very organized, lots of experience. We're truly going to miss her here. But she was dedicated not only to our organization, but to all the citizens of Lubbock. So Eva, this is very well deserved.
I know you've got lots of family and friends here. So I'm gonna invite you, if you guys are here for Eva, come up and join us if you would. We'd like to have you up front. Come on. Even some flowers, looks like some flowers. I know. Look at this. I think we do. I hope so. Okay, so special recognition printed on our fancy paper that says, whereas Eva Smith began working for the city of Lubbock on March 7, 1981. And after completing a 40-year career of dedicated public service to the citizens of Lubbock and to the city organization, Eva is retiring and beginning a new chapter in her life. And whereas Eva Smith retires as the city's vital statistics coordinator, a supervisory role which requires the vital statistics department to comply with a wide variety of local, state, and federal code services and laws. The vital stats department must also ensure that vital statistic records are handled and maintained with the highest standards of care, security, confidentiality, and whereas under Eva's supervision, Lubbock's vital statistics department has met and exceeded these very high standards and has been recognized by the state of Texas on multiple occasions for their professionalism, thoroughness, and the quality of their work. And whereas under Eva's leadership, Lubbock's vital statistics department has always provided the citizens of Lubbock, government agencies, legal courts, law enforcement, funeral homes, physicians, and internal city departments with exemplary customer service, excellent problem-solving skills, and a positive professional attitude each and every day. And whereas it is appropriate to congratulate, to express thanks, and to recognize Eva Smith as she completes 40 years of service to the city of Lubbock. Now, therefore, we, the mayor and city council of the great city of Lubbock, do hereby recognize Eva Smith, and in doing so, extend our best wishes and ask that Eva please stay in touch with her many friends and coworkers as she leaves us behind after 40 years and begins a well-deserved retirement. Dated this 23rd day of March, 2021, signed by the mayor and the members of the Lubbock City Council. Eva, congratulations.
Thank you, Eric Pope, and City Council members for taking this opportunity for this recognition. I live behind, a lot of memories and a wonderful staff. Norman, Ivan, Minerva. They're wonderful women. I'm gonna miss them a lot. And I had their support, and I was privileged to be part of a great team, and they have accomplished a lot, and I'm very proud of them, what they've accomplished and stuff. And I want to thank Becky for giving me supportive to lead the team and run a good department and stuff. And to some of y'all who remind me that you weren't even born when I started working for the And I'd like to thank my family and friends. I knew they were going to come because I've been telling them for the past 10 years I was going to show up to make sure I was going to do it. So, thank you, and God bless you.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, let's have the youth art month. Andrew, Bobby, Neely, you guys, if y'all would come up. Where's Bobby? Bobby, get up here. There's plenty of people that can take photos, okay? We can, yeah. We know you who's in charge anyways. Come on over, okay? So March is Youth Art Month and across Texas. And we're so pleased to celebrate that along with the Lubbock ISD art leadership team. Virtual exhibitions are this going on this month at Luca, at the Louise Hopkins Underwood Center for the Arts, as well as at our own Municipal Art and Garden Center. And we have a remarkable arts program in all of our schools in our community. You know, it's Andrew might remind you guys, or might remind you that there's 4 kids that are involved in the fine arts and they are involved in athletics. It's a big part. A lot of our athletes are also involved in fine arts, but it's a big part of the education of all of our kids. And so it's a great opportunity to recognize these guys. So I'm going to read this recognition real quick, and then Mr. Babcock, I'll let you make some comments. Okay. So once again, special recognition. The Lubbock Independent School District has taught and inspired generations of local young art students by providing encouragement, a rich and diverse art curriculum, first-rate teachers, premier facilities, and opportunities that young artists need to enhance their learning experience. And whereas LISD is committed to the visual arts and the young artists in our community, despite a global pandemic, by continuing their efforts to encourage students to explore their artistic gifts, as well as by cultivating exhibition spaces that celebrate young artists' work. And whereas the Lubbock Independent School District proudly continues their tradition of celebrating March as Youth Art Month in Lubbock and across the state of Texas by virtually exhibiting student artwork from each Lubbock ISD campus, at the Louise Hopkins Underwood Center for the Arts, and at the Lubbock Municipal Garden and Arts Center throughout the month. And whereas Lubbock Independent School District has even curated an in-person Luca Youth Art Month Blue Ribbon exhibit, that's a mouthful, from March 2nd through March 28th, where citizens can safely view paintings, drawings, mixed media pieces, digital artwork, sculptures, jewelry, ceramics, and other art projects created by students from all Lubbock ISD K-12 campuses that have received a special Blue Ribbon distinction, an honor that gives the students affirmation and an experience as a real artist. And whereas it is appropriate during Youth Art Month to recognize the Lubbock Independent School District and to thank them for all their achievements and for continuing to provide a quality environment for the arts for all student grade levels within our city. Now therefore, we, the mayor and the city council of the great city of Lubbock, do hereby declare the month of March the Youth Art Month in Lubbock and encourage all citizens to support all our artists, particularly our young artists, to enjoy their artwork at these public exhibitions and to support art throughout the year, dated this 23rd day of March, 2021, signed by the mayor and the members of the Lubbock City Council.
Mayor, thank you, City Council. We are always grateful for the council's recognition of Youth Art Month. It's gone on for many years, and we, of course, always are appreciative of that. I think this year in particular is that much more appreciated. In a year where we have been confined and we've been distant from one another, the one thing that has screamed to us is that we all crave collaboration. We crave relationship. And arts that is the sense, that is the antithesis of human existence and how we feel about art education. If you don't have art, if you don't have people, if you don't have relationship, you don't have art. You can't consume that. You can't be a part of that experience. And it's proven over and over again that arts make a difference in education. It makes a difference in the cultural experiences, but it really just makes a difference in being human. And we are grateful that the city continues to recognize that. We're grateful for the support they give. And of course, very grateful for the team that we have to work with, Neely Holly, and of course, Bobby. She does run the ship. He's not lying about that. We have Kurt Stresky and also Teresa Carr, who also work in our office. But our teachers, just amazing people that have persevered through insurmountable obstacles that have been put in front of them. And they have persevered, and their students are thriving and doing well. And I could not be more proud of the team that we get to work with on a daily basis. So again, thank you for the recognition.
One, two, three.
Okay, I'd like to invite the two-time in a row consecutive state champion Lubbock High School Western girls swim and diving team to come join me, please, along with your coaches and leaders of Lubbock High School leadership. This is a really cool opportunity. I was part of a state championship team in high school, and then I got another medal. I got a medal when Estacado won a state championship a few years ago, and Mr. Mastigall and I had one of those. We were on the school board together, and those medals are proudly displayed at my house. I never got on the field for the state championship team in high school. I just kept the stats. They were kind enough to give me a medal. And so it's a trivia question that you might get asked sometime about me. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Last year, when you guys won your state championship, COVID hit and we couldn't recognize you. And so when you defended this year so capably with a different team, doing it a little different way, we thought it'd be a great chance for us to recognize you guys. So it's winning a state swimming championship in 5A is not easy, because you compete against all those suburban school districts, okay? And it's like winning one in golf. It's not easy. You know, it's hard to beat the Woodlands. It's hard to beat Highland Park, and it's hard to beat all the Frisco schools, and we could go on and on. And so it's a big deal. And so we want to make sure we recognize you. So before I do that, I want all the parents or family members or friends of the kids behind me to stand up, because we want to recognize you guys too. I swam at one point early in my life, and I'll never forget about what those early morning practices were like. And I know some of your parents, I know the routine, and there's a lot of effort that parents put in, and and big sisters and big brothers, and so thank you for all of that. I also think it's appropriate that we remember that about 35 years ago, this community decided to invest in swimming and diving. And it was a real controversial decision. And we actually ended up building the swim center on the side of a beloved old junior high school. And the voters voted for it. It was done. It was done with the courage of the school board at that time, and it was done. And it was done for a lot of reasons. And we teach second graders to swim there. We do a lot of things there, but we've built this tradition of excellence, you know? And sometimes it takes a little bit of risk and planting a seed and fertilizing it, watering it, pulling the weeds that come up to make sure you get to a point where you can be champions. Right, Coach? Coach? And so I'm just really proud of all of you guys. So I'm going to read this, and I'm going to turn over to Coach Hayes and let him make introductions and make some comments. Okay, so special recognition. Whereas the Lubbock High School girls swimming and diving team began this season as the defending Texas 5A state champions, then after battling through all the COVID restrictions and protocols, the Lubbock High School girls swimming and diving team, Lubbock High School. I'm going to try that statement here. I'm sorry, I'm not reading that very well. Successfully ended this year's regular season with a 15-1 dual meet record. With the success of this season's record, the LHS athletes have won their 13th straight District 3-5A team championship, their 9th straight Regional 1-5A team championship, and qualified for the state meet in 9 of 12 events. A tremendous achievement for these remarkable athletes. And whereas the Lubbock High School girls swimming and diving team earned the following achievements at the state meet. Alyssa Britt kickstarted the team's success with a 4th place finish in diving. Then Alice Fox, Emma Brady, Elizabeth Eppright, and Shayna McLeod earned 1st place in the girls 200 medley relay and set a new state 5A record. Ellis then won the girls 100 butterfly and finished 3rd in the 200 IM. Shayna, is that right? Is it Shayna? Okay, so make sure I got it right. Shayna McLeod finished 2nd in the 100 freestyle and 3rd in the 50 freestyle. Emma Brady finished 3rd in the 100 breaststroke. Emma Brady, Scarlett McLeod, Shayna McLeod, and Laura Byers also earned 2nd place in the 200 freestyle relay. Emma Brady, Laura Byers, Elizabeth Eppright, and Alice Fox wrapped up a successful competition, garnering 2nd place in the 400 freestyle relay. And whereas the Lubbock High School girls swimming and diving team medaled in 8 of the 12 events. Tell you what it means. Earning the team championship by 48 points over state rival Magnolia. That's one of those fast-growing Montgomery County's north of Houston school districts, okay? Additionally, Coach Trey Hayes was named TISCA 5A State Coach of the Meet for the 2nd straight year. These athletes have earned a number of achievements that qualified them to be considered for NICA All-American honors, and whereas it is appropriate to recognize the Lubbock High School girls swimming and diving team for becoming the state 5A champions 2 years in a row, and to applaud these athletes for this achievement and for their commitment, hard work, dedication, and competitive spirit. Now therefore, we, the mayor and the city council of the great city of Lubbock, do hereby recognize the Lubbock High School girls swimming and diving team and ask all Lubbock citizens to join us in applauding their important achievements, which have brought pride, honor, and recognition to both Lubbock High School and the city of Lubbock. Dated this 23rd day of March, 2021, signed by the mayor and the members of the Lubbock City Council. Please help me recognize them. I'm gonna let Coach Trey Hayes and his team make a few, I can't pronounce Penny's last name, so Penny D. But I'm gonna let Trey and Penny make a few comments and introduce the team and the folks that support the team. Coach?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I would just like to start off by saying, couldn't do it without my parents. Thank you for believing in us as coaches. Thank you for believing in these kids. Thank you for all your support this year. It's been a wild year. I'd also like to thank the City Council for having us here today. I know Mr. Maxfield and Mr. Pope have been avid supporters of our swim team and diving team since they were the school board presidents on the school board. Also like to thank our fearless leader, Mr. Young. He supports swimming and diving like nobody's business. He's always there with us. Last year, he didn't get to be in the picture, which just broke my heart. I'm glad you were there this year, Mr. Young. We appreciate that. Our superintendent, Dr. Rollo. I know she's busy today. She'd love to be here with us, but if it wasn't for her guidance and her help, we wouldn't have been able to get in the water this year. I'd like to thank our school board who always supports us. We can't do it without them. They always find ways to help us out, not just us, but all the athletes, students in LIC. And I thank Coach Meeks. Coach Meeks is 100% swimming and diving sport. When he was hired from LIC, first thing he did was he came to see me and Coach D. So we really appreciate him. Also, I'd like to thank my wife for sharing me with everybody. Couldn't do it without you. Let's talk about the team. I'm going to introduce all my athletes, and I'm going to introduce our coaches. We're going to start off, first up, we got senior Emma Palafox. And silver medalist, Scarlett McLeod. Sophomore, Ariel Marpa. Junior, sophomore, Greta Williams. One of the heart and souls of our team, the girl that always puts everything on her back, Shayna McLeod. Shayna was the anchor leg on that relay that won the state championship, set state record. We had some things come up right before the meet. We looked like we were in bad shape. Everybody here knows what I'm talking about. We'll get to that. But Shayna and the other girls in that relay, they stepped up. Took over to help a teammate out, and it showed with that relay. Shayna got a gold medal in the medley relay, silver medal in the 100 free, bronze medal in the 50 free, not breaststroke, and helped with that 200 freestyle relay. Shayna McLeod. Next, all-around swimmer. She's done every event in the world for us this year. Elizabeth Everett, our senior, swam on the medley relay, broke the state record, was a part of that 400 freestyle relay. Emma Brady, sophomore, Lubbock High, got a medal in the breaststroke. Juniors, sorry, I'm a little nervous. Silver medal in the 200 freestyle relay and silver medal on the 400 free relay, and got her own individual medal in the breaststroke. Next up, Ellis won 2 gold medals, medley relay, 100 fly. Silver medal, bronze medal in 200 IM, and silver medal in 400 free relay. She had her fingernail ripped off in warm up. And there was a long time there where I didn't know if we were even going to get to swim. And I asked her what she wanted to do, and she just leaned into me and kind of a growl and said, "I'm swimming. We're here to win." So I just let it go. And if you want to hear a story about how bad it was, we can go talk about that later. It's not something we can do on TV. All right. My 2 captains, Laura Byers. Laura swam on the 200 free relay, got a medal. And the 400 free relay, she's a distance swimmer. My other captain, Emmy Barron, she's my captain this year. Katie Kuiper, senior, been to state many times, 4 times? 3. Okay, 3 times. You want to introduce your diver? Oh, I'll go for it. Our diver did a great job at state. Alyssa Britt. More junior. Fernanda Harrell, she is a senior. I got that one right. Peyton Caruth, junior. All right, I got that one. And then one of our freshmen this year, Aspen Dessinger. Coaches, the mayor said in his speech, getting through COVID protocols, we had to do a lot of crazy stuff this year to get the kids competition we knew we needed. There were days that we would leave at 5 o'clock in the morning, take 2 of our teams to Dallas, swim a meet. My other coaches would bring the other teams to Dallas. They would get back on the bus with the team that just finished, and we'd come back. We did that 6 or 7 times this year, just so we were ready for the state championship meet. Cannot do it without our coaching staff. First of all, new coaches to us the 2nd year. This is Derek Wheeler, former Lubbock High swimmer. Coach Charles Overton, he is our sprint coach. He did a lot of work this year. Coach Overton. Former All-American for LISD, Kimber Davis. My swimming partner in crime, Dakota Tiefer-Tiller. My little sister, yes. Especially Coach Sullivan, she did not get to do a lot of things with us this year. When we took pictures and everything, and like I said, we couldn't have done it with the varsity team this year without her helping us this year. Thank you so much, Coach Sullivan. But this is Penny DiPomazio. DiPomazio, there you go. Practice a little bit. Coach D, I'm just going to say, Coach D's retiring this year. The whole time I've been in Lubbock, this is my 24th year. We dreamed about this day. Didn't dream we'd get it back to back, but we sure hoped we would. Coach D is probably the best diving coach in the state of Texas. All the history of diving coaches. We're going to miss her this year, and this is a good way for us to go out, don't you think? All right. Thank you very much for having us.
Okay, let's get a picture up here. I want the captains with the state medals here in the middle, and then everybody around them, swimmers, let's get all around them, okay? Everybody in here. Come on, let's go.
Come on, guys.
Smile big, okay? Let's get parent pictures here. Congratulations. You guys want to take the meeting? Okay, it's 5:19. I'll call the city council meeting to order. Today is 23rd of March, 2021, when our regularly scheduled meeting, second meeting in March. Item 4 on our agenda is next. We have, that's citizen comments. We've received one citizen comment via email, I believe. And I've had no one sign up for citizen comments live. We've got a number of public hearings and likely live citizens will participate in those. So I'll turn it over to the city secretary to read the one citizen comment we received.
Thank you, Mayor. Courtney Haas will read that citizen comment.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. Ms. Moss?
Okay, this citizen comment is from George Heron Roeder, 1917 27th Street. Lubbock City Council, in recognition of Youth Art Month, could we please let the kids at Hutch finish the coloring book mural that was started in conjunction with Texas Tech? Great job to those involved with getting this project started. Also, great job to those that put a stop to it before it was finished. I believe we are all in agreement that the arts have no place in a respectable society.
Thank you, Ms. Moss. Okay, that would conclude citizen comments. Just a couple of mentions. We will be doing our public hearing when we open those up in a little while. Those will be both live and for people that might be on Zoom. This meeting is posted for both in person as well as Zoom. We will continue to do that until such time that we feel like the pandemic has been allayed in our community. So we have someone watching, for those of you that might be on Zoom watching the meeting, we have someone watching for for you to raise your hand, and there's a feature on Zoom where you can raise your hand, and that would be, we will remind you of that again when we get to our public hearings. Okay? I believe the next item is not on our agenda, is number 5. It's minutes. Beginning on page 69 of our agenda package for this meeting are minutes from the January 27, 2021 regular city council meeting, special city council meeting at the Lubbock Economic Development Alliance meeting, and also the February 23, 2021 regular city council meeting. Council, to begin discussion on those, is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Childish. Thank you, Mr. Massinger. Council, are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor of that motion to approve the minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by the same sign? Okay, that motion carries 7-0. We'll move now to the consent agenda. Items considered to be routine and enacted by one motion without separate discussion comprise the consent agenda. If the council desires to discuss an item separately, it's removed from the consent agenda and is considered in that manner. We have a number of pulls from our consent agenda this evening. I'm going to run through those real quick. Item 6.3, 6.4, 6.4.1, 6.8, 6.10, 6.17, 6.20, and 6.22. Mr. Atkinson, is that accurate? Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor, that is.
Okay, council, are you good with that? Is that what you expect? Okay, so I'll open the floor for a motion to begin consideration or to approve, I guess, the consent agenda with the exception of items 6.3, 6.4, 6.41, 6.8, 6.10, 6.17, 6.20, and 6.22. Thank you, Ms. Joy. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Griffin. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, with the exception of items 6.3, 4, 4.1, 8, 10, 17, 20, and 22, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed by that same sign? Okay, that motion carries 7-0. We'll now move to item 6.3. Item 6.3 is on page 91. To begin discussion on item 6.3, is there a motion? Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Massengale. I believe we have a quick presentation on that. Is that correct? Cheryl Brock is here to, Mr. Atkinson, you want to make any comments for that? Okay. Ms. Brock, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This is actually an item to amend the budget on, in North Overton TIF. We're actually adding $900,000. We're adding $900,000 to the capital project in North Overton.
Put your presentation up.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. This is a budget amendment to increase the appropriation of the transfer of capital for North Overton by $900,000. It's also an amendment to increase the budget for Royford Pioneer Park, which is another project in North Overton, and it increases the budget for that project from $1.1 million to $2 million. Oh, my things are pretty working today. All right. This is a little bit about the project history. March 14th, the City Council did approve the creation of North Overton TIF. They approved the first project and finance plan in June of 2002. And TIFs, if you're not familiar, finance and project plans are what control what's done with the money in the TIF. October 1, 2018, we did appropriate money for the Pioneer Park Capital Project. And it was created in North Overton TIF's budget for 18-19. We actually appropriated $800,000. On the recommendation from Parks at the time, they recommended we increase the budget and the budget for 19-20 by $300,000. So currently the budget for that project is $1.1 million. The board did review this project on January 12th of 2021. They did ask for smaller dog park to be included in that project. March 3rd of 2021, the Brianna brought the project, their new design, back to the board, and they did approve the project with the increase to the budget of $900,000. Once approved, the construction document development can begin immediately. And this is a portion of the project is related to the design guidelines in Overton, North Overton. Most of you were probably not on the council at the time they were approved, but we have a really specific set of design guidelines for the right of way and projects in North Overton. And this is actually a part of those guidelines. Brianna, do you want to speak to the project itself? Okay, sure. Excuse me, Brianna's going to come up and speak.
Good evening, Mr. Girardi. Thank you for sharing. And I know that Mr. Dane is the chair of the North Overton TIF this year. I guess you may call on him for comments at some point.
Yes, sir, you all can if you would like to hear from him as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, good to be with you this evening. So what you'll see now is, I mentioned on the previous slide that in September of 2019, we, Council did approve a contract with Park Hill Smith and Cooper, which is now Park Hill, for the design of Pioneer Park. We did not, for a variety of reasons, start that contract immediately. And so the TIF actually saw a proposed design for the first time at this January 12th, 2021 meeting. And that's the first concept I'll show you here in a second is the original design that was brought to them by Park Hill, which is concept C, which you can see here. As Cheryl mentioned, we do have a very specific set of public improvement guidelines, and the cost of those public improvements at this site will be $535,000. So a significant portion of the 1.1 million that we had budgeted for this project, and really ate up obviously about 50% of what of usable funds. And so we received a fairly basic concept that was really just an open lawn, and then taking an existing concrete volleyball court that's there and changing it over to a sand volleyball court, making it much more usable. Outside of that and the public improvements, it was really just a fairly large lawn. And so when the TIF board saw this design, they, through their discussion, asked for a few more amenities to be added, knowing that that would likely result in a need for a budget amendment. And so we went back to Park Hill. This is some pricing information on that original concept. We can go through this if you all would like to. This is concept C2, which was brought back to the board on March the 3rd, and includes, as you can see here, a large and small dog park. And I'm getting out of my lane a little bit. I'll let Colby jump in if we need him to. But my understanding is you don't build one big dog park. You have to separate the two sizes of dogs. So when they ask for the dog park, then they end up with two separate spaces. We kept the sand volleyball court, and then also added, you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, a fitness playground. You've probably seen these before. They're the stationary kind of climbing structures that you can use for pull-ups and stretching and all of that sort of thing. So not a traditional playground for kids, but more of a fitness structure to really appeal to the college students that are living surrounding this area. These are a few examples of what those fitness playgrounds look like. This is a little bit larger, I believe, than what they're proposing here, but kind of gives you an idea of what we're looking at. And then I'll go back to this page. This is concept C2. So this is what was approved by the TIF board that includes that $900,000 budget increase. So the public improvements stay the same. We have to do those regardless. And the cost of construction goes up to the 1.3 million. And you can see here what amenities that includes. I won't read that to you, but this breaks down the pricing of those amenities. So the only thing not included on this second slide are those $500,000 public improvements. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions, or as you mentioned, Mr. Dane is here as well.
Okay, let's, before we open for questions, let's, Cheryl, come back for just a minute and remind everyone how the TIF financing works and where the dollars in this, just clearly remind everyone where the dollars in this project, how it's funded, okay?
TIFs are typically, the way they're funded is when you create a TIF, you have a base year. For Overton, the base year is 2002. So what happens is kind of like you have a base for Overton of 26 million. The taxing jurisdictions that participate in this TIF continue to get the taxes on that 26 million. But those who participate, the increases on over that 26, which right now is somewhere around 500 million, the increases of that, the taxes on that goes into a special TIF fund. It has to be used within the TIF. And so what's funding this are those dollars that are collected into North Overton TIF. It's the difference between those two numbers. And as you can tell, the values increased considerably since the beginning.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Dane, Jeff, anything you want to add?
No, I think they've really covered anything. I'll certainly give you board perspective.
Please come up if you would. Jeff Daines is CFO at University Medical Center and serves on a couple of our TIF boards and chairs at North Overton TIF. Jeff, thank you.
Thank you very much. Three of them, actually.
Three, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And you're a TIF expert. We may start putting you on the agenda, but we have TIF items.
Yeah, when this originally came back, I think that what the board felt was that with the $1.1 million budget that we had, the design certainly fit within that budget, but didn't really provide the amenities that we were trying to get to the residents in the area. And so when the second one came back, while it was the additional $900,000 as far as increased cost, we thought that it did a better job kind of suiting the needs of the people in the area and contributing to the TIF area in general. So that was the reason that we supported going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Dane. Council, any questions for Mr. Dane while he's up? Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, Colby, you want to add anything to this from a parks perspective?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I did want to let know that playground, the fitness playground that is there, is a structure that is rated for 5-year-olds to 12-year-olds and 13 plus. And so while it is a different type of playground that we don't have the necessary slides and that type of stuff, it's not excluding that the younger kids in their sense. So multiple times in those, you will see the kids going through, and it's an obstacle course for them, and they time themselves and those kinds of things. And so I don't want it to be taken that it's just a playground or a facility for just college students along that is meant for a wide range of age groups. Now, it is going to appeal to that college age group as well, but it's not just for that age group. And so that'd be the only question I'd like to say.
Thank you, Colby. Mr. Childs, you have a question for Colby?
Yes, Colby, please.
Yes,
I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. The proposed exercise equipment is child friendly for the age of 5 to 12, you said?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to this top right picture there is the picture that I showed the TIF board in that sense. And so you'll see a lot of those apparatuses that kids will use. You got a monkey bar type of group on it. You have a balancing area there where they're going back and forth, and you can see on the very bottom where someone's running back and forth. So a lot of those elements are geared to a wide range of kids and even adults being able to use that facility. So what we saw on that is that we're going to be able to touch a large range of our community by putting in a type of facility like this, and it felt like it fit with the TIF design very much. And so that's what we proposed.
Are there other cities out there, Kobe, that have something similar to this already in use?
So multiple. When before my career started here, we installed one of these very similar in the city of Sugar Land, and it was very well received by all ranges. Going out there, you can see kids going out there, 7, 8, or 9-year-olds, doing those apparatuses. They felt like it was, you see the shows American Ninja Warriors and different things like that. It really brought out a different type of people to playing with it, but doing it in a physical fitness way. And so do believe that this is going to be a very, very popular spot for a wide range of the community.
Okay, Mr. Jones. Please continue.
Yes, please. I was a little apprehensive, if I may, at the very onset, because I was not seeing any playground equipment for the youth.
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
Right, and we did take back and look at our, the standards of National Parks and Rec is a 10-mile walk or a 10-minute walk. We want to try to be 10 minutes away from anybody going to a park. And so we did take a look at, okay, did that segregate, that change any of those atmospheres when that layers were put on? And it did not. Even if you took Pioneer Park away, the coverage of the area would still be in a 10-minute walk to Overton Park as well. And so we're overlapping both of those by taking the playground out. We're not hurting anything as far as those things.
Yeah, that was my concern. Excuse me. To see the let's say the older children or the young adults exercising there, or if somebody brought their children, the children would have nowhere to exercise or what would you do with the children? Now this is more interactive, is what I'm saying. Let's talk about upkeep. Who's responsible? Who will be responsible for the upkeep of the equipment, the grounds, and so on?
I will.
You, the city will?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, sorry, I mentioned that. So all of the public improvements in the north.
Can you get closer to the microphone, please?
Yes, sir. all of the public improvements in North Overton are maintained by the PID. So we actually have a TIF district, a tax income and financing district, and a public improvement district in North Overton. And North Overton pays for the cost of all of the maintenance. So down all of our medians, all of our street trees, park and playground equipment, all of that currently is maintained by Tom's Tree Place, paid for by the public improvement district.
And again, for the public information, how is this being funded? In case the public is not on it.
So the park improvements themselves will be paid for through the North Overton TIF district. And then once the project is complete, then the PID district will, did I say that backwards? Okay, the TIF will pay for the improvements, the PID will pay for the maintenance once the project is complete.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Ryder.
Sorry, I got tripped up there.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. It's good, Mr. Jordan.
Well, just to follow up, the PID is comprised of the businesses and the apartments and that sort of thing. They're within the PID, and
Yes,
they
ma'am.
pay an assessment in order to do that.
Yes, ma'am, all of the property owners within that district.
My question was for Colby. Colby, this park is part and parcel of Ramirez Elementary. They do have a playground, but I noticed it's fenced off all year round. Is that right?
You're correct in that.
So is there any way that the younger children could get access to that since you all are making these improvements?
I think there's gonna have to be a conversation with the school because we reached out to the school to make sure we verify that exact question that you have.
Yeah.
That's the only playground that we found from the school district that they lock up at night. And so I don't know particularly why. I can make assumptions on that, but I don't know exactly why that is, but that's the only one. So I think it may be something worth a conversation to the ISD at some point.
Yeah, because looking at some of what you've shown us, the examples, I see a little bit of concern about little kids on this getting hurt. If they had an alternative to go over and play on the swings and the slides and things that are on there, I think that might not be a bad idea. Are you lighting this all night? Is that the plan for that lighting?
I'll have to, yeah, I believe there's lighting throughout the park. As far as will this particular one be lit, there will be natural lighting throughout the design of the park, of course, on the sidewalks, and the curb there that you see will have lighting going around it as well. The volleyball courts will be lit, and so you'll have a good lighting throughout the park.
Okay, and then one of the expenses is for demolition of existing facilities. What are you demolishing?
Well, you have a volleyball court that's concrete that's there. You have the current playground that's there. You're going to have some infrastructure that has to come down. We try to save as many of the trees and that as there can be, but I don't believe we actually get any of the trees that were healthy or anything that nature when we identify them. And so it's basically the equipment that's there, the things that are there, the sidewalks are there. I mean, it's going to be basically a flat line build.
Okay, so the current playground equipment is not salvageable?
No, man. After those playgrounds are put in place, the trying to take one of those playgrounds out and place it into another spot is not a wise move.
Okay.
Mr. Griffin?
Thank you, Mayor. The component about the playground equipment, I just want to, I've got to bring this up. And I understand that in this case, Ramirez is locked up.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure that everybody understands we've got several LISD campuses in our city where adjacent within a sand wedge. You've got city-owned playground and LISD playground that close together. And so I just want to make sure that this is differentiation. And I understand LISD makes that consideration of locking up that particular facility. But we've used school tax money and city tax money right across the street from each other repeatedly So I appreciate the fact that you have reached out to LSD. We need to work together on those components.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chavez?
One more question, Kobe, since we brought up Ramirez Elementary playground equipment. That's not really the distance wise, if an adult is using that equipment, Ramirez is approximately 100 yards away from the proposed play or exercise equipment for the adults. I don't think I would feel comfortable leaving my child unattended 100 yards away. Why could not some equipment with swings and conventional equipment, conventional playground equipment be next to the proposed fitness playground equipment for the adults? Has that been discussed? Or is that a possibility?
Of course, it's a possibility. It's just depending on the funding of that. And so what we were tasked with was trying to come up with a park within a certain dollar figure in that sense. And so that's what we came back with. I mean, yes, you could add other things to this area, but it's just that cost is going to go up. So if you wanted to have off the top of my head, a dedicated swing set area, you could build that, but you're going to have an additional $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 that you're going to have to put there for surfacing and all those different amenities that go along with it. Now, please don't quote me on the price of whatever. It's just depending on what you wanted to do there. It would just raise the budget of project.
Because we're talking spending approximately $90,000 for both dog parks. And approximately 1 acre combined. The existing playground equipment sits on about a quarter of an acre. I'm having a hard time with building a $90,000 dog park and not having anything for the children. And it's, as the description was, the swings, the seesaws, the teeter-totters, whatever they're called, conventional equipment or playground equipment for the children is what I'm having a hard time with. I'm all in favor of the park I'm not speaking against the park by any means. I like the green space, I like the concept. I'm just trying to figure out what can be done. Again, if you take, not to quote you, or not to keep it to your number, take 90,000 for the equipment, where's it coming from? You're taking it from the dog park or the sandlot volleyball. It's got to come from somewhere. I'm having a hard time with that one.
And Mr. Chavez, what we looked at in there, just to kind of look through what you were speaking, because we were thinking that when the agenda got full, of course, and looking through, and that's where we're going to say, okay, how far are we from the next playground and what is in? And by all means, understand that you're not going to have a family that's going out there and they're going to let the kid go to the next one. We wanted to make sure that we did have a playground, a traditional type of playground facility within that radius. And so that's where we look at the 10-minute walk to see, okay, do we offer a similar piece of equipment at another park, and how far is that location? So you have from Pioneer to over to the park is 0.62 miles, and so just over under a half mile. It stays within our 10-mile walk portion of it. And so now it's just a matter of I don't have an argument against what you're saying, because it's a matter of preference on there in that sense. So we can build anything that we need to. If we want to go back and look at adding some more traditional playground apparatuses, that's something that I can get numbers to that fairly quickly. It's just going to increase this total cost of the project.
Understood. Maybe this is a point of starting a conversation with the ISD. What can be done to make that playground equipment accessible, since it is within walking distance?
And I'll be glad to start that conversation.
I'm sorry.
I'll be glad to start that conversation with LIS.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Kobe.
Ms. Joy.
Was this project bid?
No, this is an estimated cost by park hill, and so we have not gone into any things that are there. This was a concept and a estimated budget cost as we're at, and so it did trigger the additional funding, and that's why we're bringing it back at this point for the.
So we should still, or you all still work on this cost and what makes up this part, right? It's not set in stone.
No, it's not.
It's just a concept.
That's right.
I didn't get that. Thank you.
Other comments on 6.3 questions? Giles, or you're not sure how.
Yeah, I was just looking over, I think I'm still with the swing set for children. You know, CDC's got numbers out there called child obesity that are just 2 to 5 year old, that's at 14% obesity rate. 6 to 11 is at 18%. 12 to 19 is at 20%. And I think having this a swing set, something that will bring the children next to where mom and dad are working out, right close to the proximity of where mom and dad are seeing, or they're seeing mom and dad work out. That may be very helpful at the same time. And I understand what the dilemma is, but I think the playground equipment for children is what I'm missing out on.
That's certainly something we can take back to the board. I don't want to speak for them, especially since our board chairman is here and if you all want to come back up. But I think the thinking was the demographic that surrounds this park isn't families. Most of that demographic, it's the college students. And so I think it's certainly something we can take back to the board for conversation that we want to make it family friendly as well.
And I understand the argument about the demographics, but we can't lose concept of the idea that it is a city park. You know, and everybody's welcome to the city park. That's what I'm looking at. And I understand the demographics. I understand college students that are there. I see the college students in the mornings walking their dogs. But at the same time, it's still called a city park. That's not supplying a swing set for the children. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Massey.
Mr. Chavez, I might suggest that we might postpone this to date certain. You spend a little time on it, get a little more comfortable with it. Would you understand that?
I would feel more comfortable. Spend a little bit more time on this. If you guys anyone with some of the, you said you were going to visit with the LSD people. I can do the same thing. Not slapping the doors on anything. Like I said, I'm all for the park. I think this conversation needs to go into more detail.
I think it's also important to recognize that we're approving budget, a budget amendment for this project. We're actually not, we're not approving the project itself. It would go to bid, and it would all come back to us as it always does for the final approval. And so go back to the TIF board and come to us. So that's another, but I mean, I'm completely, if you want to, 3 weeks okay, you'd be okay to the 13th?
I would feel comfortable with that.
Okay, once you want to make a motion to postpone to date certain on April 13th?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to a date certain. Okay. That will be for the 13th of next month.
Okay.
I'll second Mr. Chavez's motion.
Got a motion on the floor to postpone action on this to April 13th, 2021. We've got a second. The only discussion that's germane would be anybody that would like to discuss whether or not we postpone or not. Okay, if that's the case, then I see no comments or questions. All those in favor of the motion to postpone items 6.3 to date certain, which would be April 13, 2021, please say aye. Aye. Be opposed by that very same sign. Okay, that motion passes 7-0. We'll take that up again at our next meeting. Council, let's move now to item 6.4. It's on page 94. I think we'll take this up. We'll take up 6.4 and 6.41 together. Is that okay? Correct. Okay. Is there a motion to begin consideration of item 6.4 and 6.41? Thank you, Mr. Titus. Second, Ms. Joy. Got a motion and a second. Mr. Atkins.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Brock will start us through this. We also have Mr. John Perkins with us today, Assistant Director of Public Works, and Mr. Paul Carroll with the Air Force is here. So this is a kind of a unique project. We'll be glad to walk you through and answer any questions you may have. So Cheryl, if you begin, please.
This is a budget amendment amending the water capital project budget. It's actually establishing a project for the Reese Water Line, which is project 92709, and appropriating funding in the amount of $1,416,931. The funding for this project will be entirely the United States Air Force. So it won't be coming out of your water fund, it will be funded by them. And I believe this is the first phase of the bigger project we've gone through today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brock. Mr. Turpin.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So as many of you may remember, the United States Air Force used to own and operate Reese Air Force Base here in town on our western limits of our city. During the operations of that facility, potential groundwater contamination occurred by the chemicals or fluoroalkyl substances. It's a mouthful. We also call it PFAS. Recently, the TCEQ set limits on that at 70 parts per trillion for drinking water. Due to that, the Air Force began to test wells, and they tested more than 500 drinking wells within the city limits, and those wells, 231 private wells, were found to exceed that limit, as well as 3 public wells. The item you have before you tonight for consideration is an agreement with the United States Air Force to allow for $8,097,750 to complete the project management, design, and construction of approximately 6 miles of the line to provide safe drinking water to our citizens that are in the affected areas. The entire project is, as Cheryl pointed out, funded by the Air Force.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turpin. Questions, Mr. Turpin, on this? Excuse me, presentation. I feel we don't want to talk about that. Any questions, Mr. Turpin? Joy, just a few.
Yeah, John, we have a history, you've kind of given that to us. But during this period, when there's been an issue, has the Air Force been providing water to these people in the affected areas?
Yes, ma'am, they have. They provided bottled water, and I believe they've put on filtration systems as well.
And how long has that been going on?
I actually have Mr. Carroll here.
We found this.
Please come forward, Mr. Carroll.
The first wells that we determined were affected was late 2017. We've been sampling since then. They're in that area within the city limits. There are about 60 wells that are contaminated over the ECP radius.
So this is the first phase, is that what you said, John?
So yes, ma'am, the first phase, or the first amount of money that the Air Force is going to provide to us will provide for basically the design to bid phase. And then we're going to come back later again and do another budget amendment to have them add money for the construction phase. So basically, we have provided for us up to the $8 million that I just mentioned. But we're going to put it out for construction, a construction bid to determine what the construction is going to cost, and then actually come back to you all for the budget amendment for the construction, if that makes sense. So that we're not taking up the full $8 million now. They provided for up to $8,097,000.
So I guess the question is, because in the second phase, will they also be funding that portion as well?
Yes, ma'am. They're funding.
The entire thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Turpin, once the pipeline is built, connected to our water system, provide these residents some water. Then do the residents pay for that water, or does the Air Force pay for that water? How does that work?
The residents will pay for it.
So today, the Air Force is providing the water because their wells are not safe. Once the water is safe, then they'll pay for it like any other citizen.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
And all these areas are within the city limits?
Yes, sir. They are.
Mr. Carroll, something to add?
I might add that we are also connecting from the meter to the house and ensuring that all the city ordinances are.
It's like a homeowner would, they would build their home, since they have a well, you're doing that. You look at the well. Okay. All right. Other questions for Mr. Carroll or Mr. Turpin? Thank you, John. Yeah, no, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say, Mr. Carroll, thank you for your service. Thank you for stepping up and doing the right thing. That area for city. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's been a good experience working with the city on this. We approached them about a year ago to start talking about doing a cooperative agreement. And John Kirk has been very, very good to help that process along, get us to this point. And we really appreciate the city working with us.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Atkinson, anything to add?
No, I would echo the appreciation of Mr. Carroll. He has worked with us. I've been on this cooperative agreement for about a year. He's been working with us for at least 2 years before that. So certainly a bad issue out there, but I believe the Air Force is doing everything they can to make it right.
Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Other comments or questions? Okay, council, we have a motion and a second to approve items 6.4 and 6.41. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed by that same sign? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, let's move now to item 6.8. It is on page 193. And before we begin discussion on this, let's get a motion. Open the floor for a motion. Thank you, Mr. Patterson Harris. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Childs. Mr. Atkinson.
Mayor, City Council, Mr. Mike Kingdom, our city engineer, will take us through kind of what's starting to be the next step now, the impact fee programs.
Good evening, Mr. Keenan.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. This is an amendment to our impact fee contract we have with Warren. As you know, we've spent a lot of time on that. We're getting close to implementation. This is basically as needed $20,000 amendment to their contract for the 2 years to kind of help us through the implementation, kind of the ability for us to phone a friend. We don't need to phone a friend, then we don't spend money. But to have them, this is new to us. We haven't implemented this before, so having the consultant on board to help us with issues that come up of what do we do in this situation, having them on board is really nice for us to have. So that's what this is.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keenan. Let's go to Ms. Patterson Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I not so much a question, but I just wanted for us to take time to say that. I know when we began the process of impact fees, there was a great amount of interest. And citizens were tuning in, and they are still tuning in because they know what's coming forward. But I wanted them to know why we're asking for this, because as you stated, it's not something that the city has done before. So we don't want to make an error. The last thing we want to do is start making folks mad at this situation. But I just wanted to make sure that we took time out to say that to folks this evening, so as they keep up with us, because there are a lot of things, there are a lot of moving parts going on in the city these days. And I just wanted them to hear us say what we're going to do it, and the reason we're asking, so that we don't err as we go through this process. That's all I have.
We're going to do our best not to.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson Harris. Other comments or questions? $20,000, right, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Phone a friend, I like that. It distills it down to my level. So, okay. All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve item 6.8, please say aye. Aye. Opposed by that same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Let's move now to item 610. It's on page 238. In order to begin discussion, we have a motion. Move to approve. Thank you, Mr. Massey, for a second. Second. Thank you, Mr. Childs. Mr. Adams.
Mayor, Mr. Autry, your Water Utility Director will take us right through this.
Good evening, Mr. Spear.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just give you an overview, this contract with HDR is a continuation of some former contracts that we've had over the years in order to assist us with our water planning efforts and our wastewater permitting efforts. Quite a bit of this, as you can see, at least the majority of it, is for the continuation of the water rights permit for Lake 7. In Lake 7, we anticipate that this year we should be draft permit for that particular impoundment of that water in the right to the work. Along with that, we also have a new cycle beginning with the 2026 regional water plan. HDR assists us in helping us package up some of our the different strategies that we have to make sure that it's a regional water supply plan. They also have assisted us along the way with some of our permitting issues with our wastewater treatment plants. So that's what this contract is about.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. It looks like it's up to $45,000 worth of services. Is that correct?
That is right.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Spear? Ms. Jordan.
The only question I had, and I think you've answered it, what made me want to bring this up is Lake 7.
Okay.
I had a conversation this week with someone talking about water, and they'd never heard of Lake 7. So I wanted us to be able, one more time, to mention Lake 7 is in the planning, and that's part of our 100-year plan. To have water in Lake 7. So people need to know it's down below Lake 6. I will do. We're good about numbering things in sequential order. Look at the city. So it's important that people know that we're working on more water. We've done a good job in the past. We've done a good job now with conservation, but we're going to need Lake 7 sometimes, aren't we?
Yes, we sure are. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes each and every year to make sure that we will have the water ready when we need it.
Anything else for Mr. Spear? Thank you, Robert. Appreciate you. Council's a discussion, comments or discussion on this? We have a motion on the floor to approve item 610. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed by that same sign. Motion carries 7-0. Now move to item 617. 617 is on page 354. To begin discussion, is there a motion? Thank you, Mr. Pepsi-Harris. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Mr. Adams.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Ms. Murphy is here with us this evening to take us through one more step with some of the CARES Act. So, Karen, if you would, please.
Good evening, Ms. Murphy.
Good evening. This is an amendment to our original contract that was from last year with Catholic Charities for the Community Services Block Grant funding, and it's the CD CARES Act funding. This is not any additional funding. However, this is adding services that they're able to do with this agreement. We know that utility systems, we just had rail assistance because it was for the county. We now have additional funds that we can keep through community development through our THCA grant or the CDBG money that we can help with county. So that's kind of slow for Catholic Charities, and they felt that there's needs for utility assistance, and then their mental health voucher system that they had was working on, so that we gave them additional funding for that also. We just opened up that money so they could use that where they see fit. So we have about $130,000 left on this grant, and it's due, I think, the end of it is is July 31st or 30th. So we only have a few months, so they feel like they can extend that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Murphy. Ms. Patterson Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was me. I just wanted to make sure that we allow citizens to keep up. It seems like there's CARES Act in every place. It's coming out of everyone, out of every area. And I wanted citizens to know how differently does this work for citizens now that we're doing this with them than it would have with us. It's directly with us.
It's not really any different. It's just because we have an agreement with them through THCA. Typically they receive that CSBG funding. They already have the software, they know how to report all of the national performance indicators that we have to report to THCA. Nothing's really changed with the CARES Act funding. It's just a continuation of well, what has changed is that funding is only for those that have been affected directly by COVID, financially and otherwise.
So this is in essence helping us to make sure we get those funds utilized.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
And talk to me about the mental health piece. I know that was something that had been implemented before. Can you talk about that, please?
Yes, ma'am. So this is, Catholic Charities is identified, and we're seeing that more and more, that COVID has affected us in many ways, and there's needs for people to be able to have that, and they've lost income, can't pay their rent, utilities, a lot of things. And that other component is the mental health voucher. So Catholic Charities has set it up with, I believe, over 30 different counselors that will accept those vouchers. I believe they also are going to be able to do some in-person counseling that we're doing virtually before, but I believe now that they're going to be able to open it up and work, and people are more willing, I think, to do face-to-face counseling and not kind of voucher or a virtual, and never be able to meet them personally, because it's a very personal thing. So I think this is gonna, it was a slow start, but now that people understand it, I think it'll be utilized.
Are we making any of those referrals as well?
No, only Catholic Charities, anyone that goes, now, if someone says that they need that, then yes, they will, we can. But we do have a lot of people that we have multiple programs that we let them know about, all citizens know that.
Thank you very much. Just be clear with this.
Ms. Jordan.
Thank you. Is there an amount set aside on mental health?
I believe there's 6 sessions, and I can't, sorry, I don't
I
remember.
mean, a total amount that's being appropriate. How much just to the mental health part?
Oh, no, there is not, just, they would be able to utilize the funding however they see fit, because of rental assistance, utility assistance, and then that mental health. So there's no set amount that they can do. It's just services that they provide through the agreement, yes.
But we already approved six sessions, I think $150 a session. Is that right?
That's the same, yes.
Those printers haven't changed.
Right, those printers do not.
And that's the deal that we worked out with the mental health for the practitioners in the community. Yes. Okay. Mr. Chavez.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Murphy, I just wanted to share the address, or have you done it already?
The address.
Let's get Jerry's.
I don't know the address, I'm sorry.
102 Avenue J. Phone number is 806-765-8475.
And I believe you need to call, they are still not accepting what for clients to come there, they have to call and set up an appointment.
Just want to share some information with the public. Thank you for what you do.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, thank you, Karen. Council, we have a motion on the floor to approve item 617. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed on that same sign? Motion carries 7-0. Council will move now to item 620. 620 is on page 379. Again, consideration, is there a motion? Motion is Jordan, second, Mr. Mazzio, Mr. Atkins.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Brooke Witcher, our Assistant City Manager that oversees parks, and civic centers, and culture and leisure activities, will take us through the proposal of the new agreement to allow the milestone development and play park to come to life. Brooke, if you would, please.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a resolution asking you to consider a park land license agreement at McAllister Park for Milestone Development and Play Center. And Cassie Johnston is here to address any questions that you might have. Originally, All Springs Angels is a 501c3 nonprofit charity. They presented to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board October of 2016. So it was a different park staff, and at the time, the board voted unanimously to approve that presentation. And so staff at the time issued a letter of support for the project and said when they had raised 80% of their funds, that staff would bring this before the council for approval. So that is where we are today. And we have the architectural renderings, everything will have to be approved by Public Works, the Parks Department, as well as the City Manager's Office. And we have several examples of license agreements that exist today. The most recent that I could think of was the Regional Monument of Courage in Henry County Park. We have Joyland Amusement Park, a few museums. We have the Wind Power Center, and also I believe it's now the Fighter Max Center for Discovery, which is Yag Museum. And then the Moonlight Musicals is also at our amphitheater license agreement that we have. So we have several of these examples that exist today. And I'm happy to entertain any questions you may have. And Cassie is here also for the questions about programming.
So Cassie, why don't you come up and I know you well enough to know that you'd like to just do a little commercial and tell us, no, seriously, tell us. Yes, you. No, you've been working, it's become your life's work. And so talk a bit about this and give us an update as to where you guys are, okay?
Okay. So as Brooke said, our board of directors decided to actually investigate and do a lot of research in 2016 on a project like this. Once we got the city behind us and helping us with a location to build Milestones, in 2017, we did a feasibility study for the project because we thought it was awesome, but maybe no one else did. Of course, we got great response, great feedback. We made adjustments off of that and kicked off our capital campaign in 2017. We are at 84.49% of funds raised, and we are only lacking 486,000.
Excellent.
Steve was like my first thought way back then. Then I'm happy to answer any questions about the actual project.
Remind everybody, the park is focused on providing what?
Yes, okay, so Milestones is everything that you would have in a traditional outdoor park, trees, park benches, little walking trails, park structures, but inside. And we did that when my daughter Bryce was, when I first started trying to take her to the park. She's vision impaired and has a lot of sensory issues, and she couldn't get around on the equipment safe and easy, and I didn't know how to help her. She was crying, I was crying. I was like, we're never going back to the park. And you know, for children with special needs, a lot of times, well, any child for that matter, our weather, like yesterday's fabulous storm that rolled through, and when it's snowing outside or it's 100 degrees, that creates a lot of challenges, in particular for special needs children, but for all children. And so just having an indoor facility where kids can play every day, regardless of the weather, is just, we're so excited to be able to provide that for all families. The equipment inside the park is 100% accessible for all children. So whether they're on 2 legs or 2 wheels, they will be able to safely
get up on the equipment and play with other children, but it's not just for special needs kids. It's made with them in mind, tailored for our special kiddos, but it is for all families, and really embracing the spirit of inclusion.
Thank you. Before you leave, I'm gonna call Mr. Christian. Randy?
I know you've been at this a long time, and I really appreciate your tenacity on it. But in your opinion, this particular time, or if this is approved, how do you see that aiding get that last bit of money? Do you see this as a plus? Have you had conversations with the board? Just give me a feel what impact this would have on y'all's final stretch to run to the finish line.
Well, first and foremost, we have 2 challenge grants that have a timeline that require us to start construction, and those total $750,000. So we're at that point of over 80% and ready to start digging in the ground, and that would secure that funding for us. For the last little bit, you know, particularly when you had a project that has gone on a couple of years raising the money, and then we had COVID, which delayed us a little. It's so important for our funders, whether it's a foundation or a private donor or a business, to see it's happening, it's coming, here it is, and we want to get on board and be a part of that. So it, you know, really at this point, being able to start construction is critical.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for your passion for it. Thanks for sharing a little bit with us. Okay. Council, any further questions for Ms. Richard or comments? Ms. Jordan.
Thank you. It's a comment. This is just a land lease. We're not giving property, selling property. And so the property belongs to the city, but it's a land lease agreement. And I think it's important that everyone knows that, since this is a city property.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve item 620. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed by the same sign? Motion carries 7-0. We'll now move to item 622. Item 622 is on page 455. It's a resolution from the City Secretary's office. So before we begin consideration, is there a motion? Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Joy. Ms. Garza.
Thank you. So I'll explain a little bit. This is an interlocal agreement with Lubbock ISD and with Lubbock County and the city of Lubbock for redistricting. And I'll just explain a little bit why we redistrict. So we have many federal, state, and local elected officials that represent districts that they're actually intended to reflect equalized populations. So every 10 years, we're mandated to redefine those districts because of population growth, decline, or demographic changes. And that is what redistricting is. It's actually a process of redrawing those boundaries. And 10 years ago, we did not join with LISD or with Lubbock County, but a lot of that territory, the geographic area is the same. So we would like to have this partner is just an interlocal agreement to get the same consultants, if we could.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Garza. Questions to Ms. Garza? Ms. Patterson, yes. Okay, I'll go to Ms. We'll go to Ms. Joy first, and then to you. Ms. Joy doesn't have a question. Ms. Patterson, yes.
Okay, I have a few questions if I may.
Please.
In previous years, back in 2010-ish, we didn't enter into an agreement to do it together. And I'm understanding now that the reason we're doing it this time is to regard to cost, or talk to me about why we do it this time. This way.
It's a lot more than just the cost. 10 years ago, we had different consultants
And so we used meets and bounds, our consultants to draw our maps. They used census blocks. And then when we went, we were getting ready for elections and our maps did not match at all. They were drawn, it could be just a small section outside the city limits, and we can't actually take territory that's not ours or give up territory that way. And so it was a lot of work, actually for all involved, the county, city, my office, the legal office, to get these maps corrected. It was a lot of work. And we said, next time we need the same consultant so that everybody's communicating and knowing actually what our city boundaries are. So, it will save us money, and the reason we're including Allied Steel, their territory is in the city of Lubbock, so it's the same territory, it will save money using the same consultants.
Let me ask this question, because different boundaries for the different precincts for the county and districts for the school and the city, they're not the same. There are differences in those boundaries for each of those districts and our precincts. So how we're doing it together ensure that we're not cutting out or not adding. How, you understand what I'm asking? Because what we're doing is, although we're taking the same information, but not everybody that would be in a district in the city are actually included in a precinct for the county.
No, that is true. They are different boundaries. However, and that's where the consultants come in, because they're going to draw those. They have to try to have equalized territory because the voters have to have the same type of representation. So they're not just looking at, they're actually, that's why we have the census, because they're looking at voter counts in that area. Sometimes certain areas have lost population, others have gained. So that's where the consultants come in to be sure that all that is, that the consultants will be guiding us on all that. And then, you know,
because this is going to be a touchy subject. It'll be a touchy situation. Will there be a lead, or will there be equal say-so, equal decision-making as part of this?
as far as the three local
Yes, ma'am.
governments. Yes, we're all, everybody has representatives there.
I just don't want, I know that it's a touchy subject, and I believe in viewing meeting earlier this week, that it was pretty touchy there. And I just want all those involved to be comfortable in what we're doing and not to feel that voters are gonna be not represented or included or not counted appropriately and included in the decision making. I think that that's a concern, especially in these days and time. Everybody wants to make sure that everybody gets represented, everybody gets their say and are included in appropriate. I want to make a mess of that, but I know that it's a concern for the citizens as well as other people who actually represent citizens throughout the city.
We will have public hearings, and I can tell you that 10 years ago, we had so many public hearings. We had way too many, and we still have concerns after it was all said and done. We still have citizens that were not happy with it. So, you know, we're going to do our best.
Yeah, and I think it'll be, you can't make everybody happy. I just want to make, even if we don't make folks happy, they can look at it and say, hey, we give an opportunity and I feel like it was. So that's all I want. Not anything to do. I just wanted to have that conversation right smack dab here in the city hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson Harris. Are there other questions about item 622? Okay, so we will see, Mr. Atkinson, we'll see it. As we get down the road on this, we'll understand the process that we undertake. We talk about the public input as far as, I mean, that'll be something that comes back to us. And so this is our last bite at the apple on this. I think it's something that what I'm trying to say. Accurate, is that accurate on both sides? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, okay. Okay, we have a motion on the floor in a second to approve item 622. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed by the same sign? That motion carries 7-0. That concludes the consent agenda, I believe. We'll move now to the regular agenda. It begins with item 7.1 on page 476. Item 7.1 has been removed by staff at the request of the proponent. I believe we had a very small clerical error on the size of the piece of property to be considered for de-annexation. So it's my understanding that once we go back through posting and do it correctly, that will come back to us. Mr. Jackson, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that's the case. We'll go to 7.2. 7.2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all first reads of zone cases. They will require a public hearing for all of these. Ms. Sager is going to brief us on all 6 of them. We will pause in between each one for council questions. At the end of her briefing, we will decide how we want to handle the public hearing. We're likely to do the public hearing as all at one time. It seems to help those folks that might be at home that are commenting. But we can consider them when we get to the items themselves. We consider them as you see fit, council. Okay, Kristen, if you would begin with case 7.2, which is 2400B. It begins on page 482 for those following along at home.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Zone case 2400B. The applicant is Huber Reed and Associates for Lubbock Quaker Ltd. The purpose is to rezone property from Industrial Park District (IDP) to Department Medical (AM). We sent out 21 notifications and did not receive any responses. This property is located east of North Quaker Avenue and north of Princeton. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. It is immediately east of Trust Point Rehabilitation Hospital. The current zoning is IDP. It has that same zoning to the north, south, and west. There is high density apartment district zoning further south with light manufacturing M1 and single family residential R1 to the east. The future land use plan designates this property for industrial land uses, and it does the same for all of the surrounding property. Here are some photos of the subject property and surrounding area. To the west, you can see the Trust Point Rehabilitation Hospital and the apartment complex to the south. The principles outlined in the comprehensive plan again designate this property as industrial. So while the proposed AM zoning is not in compliance with that industrial land use designation, it is appropriate in this area given how the area has developed with other medical uses already. The zone change is in conformance with the zoning ordinance. It's compatible with the surrounding area and existing uses. And it is along Princeton Street, which is designated as a residential street in the master thoroughfare plan, but it does connect to Quaker Avenue, which is a principal arterial. So it'll be able to handle the traffic associated with this use. Staff recommended approval and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval by unanimous vote, and I'm pleased to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Sager, questions on case 7.2, council? Okay, Kristen, let's move to case 7.3. That's 0804B, page 497.
So case 804B, the applicant is Autry Engineering LLC for Brazos Brothers LLC. The request is to rezone property from single family residential R1 to 2-family residential R2. A total of 29 notifications were sent. We received 1 in favor and 5 in opposition. The majority of the responses in opposition gave comments that the neighboring property owners did not want to see duplexes. They were concerned they would lower property values and increase density in the area. Here's a map of the general area showing this property is north of 289, west of Interstate I-27. Here's a map showing the responses received. You'll notice there are 6 properties highlighted on this map in opposition. The one immediately south of the subject property at the Planning and Zoning Commission withdrew his opposition after he saw a proposed lot layout. The applicant is proposing to construct apartment homes, not duplexes. The size of the lots in his proposed layout are appropriate for garden homes, and they would be too small for duplexes. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. You can see it is surrounded by other residential uses with some other vacant land. The current zoning is R1, single family residential. It is surrounded by R1, but there is additional R2 zoning to the west. You can't see it on this map, but that R2 zoning extends further west, and that was rezoned in 2020 by BIMBO, and they're planning a new subdivision there. The future land use plan designates this property for low density residential land uses. Historically, R2 zoning is considered medium density because it does provide more of a variety of housing. It allows duplexes, townhomes, garden homes by right. Townhomes and garden homes are allowed on smaller lots, so that does increase density. Here's some photos of the subject property and surrounding area. You can see some of the residences. So again, the future land use plan designates the property for low density residential uses. The R2 zoning is appropriate next to low density residential uses and is slightly higher density. It's in conformance with the zoning ordinance and suitable next to the other existing single-family homes. It's along Wabash Street, which is a local residential street in the city master thoroughfare plan, and will be appropriate to handle the traffic associated with the R2 uses. Staff recommended approval, and the commission recommended approval by 8 p.m. So, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Sager. Questions, council?
Chair,
Ms. Joy.
just one quick question. This was an evening, we only had 5 members, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, please continue. Ms. Sager, let's move to case 7-4, or item 7-4, case 565, page 519.
Zone case 2565E. The applicant is requesting a specific use for a travel trailer park on property zoned interstate highway commercial, IHC. We sent out 33 notifications and received 1 in opposition. This property is located south of 50th, a little bit southwest of Avenue Q. Here's the notification map. The 1 response in opposition was from the VA clinic that is immediately adjacent to the subject property. Their concerns were that when they look at sites to construct VA clinics, they would prefer to be next to sites that they feel might be developed for other commercial or retail uses, such as restaurants, pharmacies, hotels, uses that they feel like would serve their clientele. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. You can see the VA clinic immediately south, as well as an existing residential neighborhood to the west. There are other hotels across Avenue Q to the east that front onto the interstate. The current zoning is interstate highway commercial. You have IHC zoning to the south, as well as to the northeast. R1 single-family residential to the west, and other apartment and commercial zoning to the north. Future land use plan designates this property for commercial land uses. The base zoning of IHC is not changing. They are just requesting to add 1 specific use for the travel trailer park, so it is still in compliance with the future land use plan. Here's some photos of the surrounding property, subject property, and some of the adjacent commercial uses. So this is just to clarify, the applicant is wanting to only have a travel trailer park on this property. They want to serve the needs of the regional and local transient population by offering temporary stays, very similar to a hotel. They have provided a detailed and dimension site plan, which I'll show in a moment, and they are proposing a 6-foot solid screening fence along Avenue L and no accessibility to the residential neighborhood to the west. Here is their dimension site plan. North would be to the left of your screen. It's a little difficult to see on here, but they are proposing the 6-foot solid screening fence along Avenue L and their proposed layout for the travel trailers. So again, the comprehensive plan and future land use map designates this property for commercial land uses. The base zoning is not changing, so IHC is still in compliance. The proposed specific use to the west is in conformance with the purposes and objectives of the Interstate Highway Commercial District. This would serve a citywide or regional area for individuals traveling to the city. It's compatible with the surrounding area. They are proposing that solid screening fence as a buffer and no access into the residential area. And the property is well suited for the proposed use and unlikely to require additional public improvements. Staff recommended approval of the request, and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval by a vote of 4 to 1. Now I'm pleased to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sager. Questions on case on item 7.4. Ms. Patterson
You
Harris.
say the future land use regulates commercial.
Yes.
What types of things would go on the commercial? What would be the allowances?
Typically, we would see retail uses, anything from a grocery store to a clothing store, department store. You might also see commercial services, anything from automotive services to barber shop, beauty shop, mainly retail business.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Sager. Let's move on to item 7.5. It's on page 540, case 2573.
Zone is 2570 PR. The applicant is A&D Engineering from North Loop 289 LTD. The purpose is to rezone property from High Density Apartment District A2 and General Retail District C3 to Two-Family District R2. We sent out 15 notifications and did not receive any responses. This property is south of Erskine and west of Slide Road. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. To the south, you have the UMC Business and Technology Center, as well as the South Plains Rehabilitation Hospital. To the west and to the north, you have a built-out residential subdivision with duplexes, and then additional vacant land to the east. The zoning, you have additional A2 and C3 to the east, with C3 and apartment medical to the south, A1 zoning to the west and to the north where the duplexes are constructed. The future land use plan designates this property for commercial land uses. So while the requested R2 zoning is not consistent with the future land use plan, it is appropriate in this area immediately adjacent to those existing residences. Here are some photos of the subject property and surrounding views. You can see the UMC Business Center to the south. So as I just stated, the comp plan and future land use map designates property for commercial, but allowing it to transition to a residential use will still leave commercial on the edges next to Erskine and Slide where you have principal arterials. The request is in conformance with the zoning ordinance and it's appropriate next to the already established residential uses. It's compatible with the surrounding area and will not change the character of the existing development. And it will have access from both Erskine and North Side Road. Staff recommended approval of the request and the commission recommended approval by unanimous vote. And I'm pleased to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Thank you, Ms. Sager. Questions on 7.5, council? Let's go to 7.6. It's on page 556, zone case 3426.
Zoning is 3426. The applicant is A&D Engineering LLC for Steve Pitts. The request is to rezone property from transition to High Density Apartment District A2 and Garden Office GO. We sent out 31 notifications. We received 2 in favor and 5 in opposition from the notices that we sent within the 200-foot notification boundary. We received 8 additional responses in opposition from property owners that were not within the 200-foot notification boundary. This property is north of 122nd Street, west of Memphis Avenue. This map shows the responses we received. The ones that sent in response in opposition, their main concerns were an increase in traffic, reduction in property values, and an increase in crime in the area. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. To the northwest, you have Walmart and Academy. To the south and to the east, you have developing neighborhoods of Solaris Estates, Patton Place, and Brook Heights. On the zoning map, you have additional transition zoning to the west along the C3 General Retail District, R1 single family residential to the south and to the east, and an additional high density apartment district A2 zoning to the north. The future land use plan designates this property for low density residential uses. So again, the garden office and A2 are not consistent with that designation. However, given that this property is on 2 collectors, Memphis and 122nd, it is an appropriate location for both of these zoning districts. Here's some photos of the subject property and surrounding area, and you can see the developed neighborhood to the side. So again, the future land use map designates the property for Logan City residential, that given the location on two collectors, and that E2 is just another type of residence that would be within the neighborhood. And garden office provides a good buffer between the C3 zoning along Quaker and the residential. They are both appropriate in this location. It's in conformance with the zoning ordinance and compatible with the surrounding established residential uses. As I stated, Memphis and 122nd Street are both collectors, which are designed to handle medium volumes of traffic and can handle the traffic associated with both of these districts. Staff recommended approval of this request. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval by unanimous vote, and I'd be pleased to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Silver. Questions on 7 and 6, council? Okay, Ms. Sager, let's move to the final case tonight, 7-7. It's on page 994, zone case 3427.
Zone case 3427, the applicant is AMD Engineering LLC for Wheelhouse Development LLC. The request is to rezone property in transition to General Retail District C3. We sent a total of 10 notifications and received 3 in opposition. This property is the northeast corner of 19th and West Loop 289. Here's the notification map with the 3 property owners who responded in opposition. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. You have Academy to the northeast and Yuma Circia across the loop to the west. The current zoning is transition. You have C3 to the northeast, Interstate Highway Commercial to the south and to the southwest, and C4 across the loop to the south. The future land use plan does not give this property a designation because it was right of way until December 2020, when TxDOT sold it and it became private property. So since it was right of way when the comp plan was completed in 2018, it was not given a designation. However, you can see the other 4 corners of this intersection were designated for commercial land uses because you are at the intersection of an expressway and a principal arterial. So commercial would be appropriate in this location as well. Here's some photos of the subject property and surrounding area. So again, commercial land uses would be appropriate at this intersection. The request is in conformance with the zoning ordinance and appropriate adjacent to the already established commercial land uses. It's suitable, C3 zoning is appropriate at this intersection on the principal arterial and an expressway, and both of those streets can service the uses found in this district. Staff recommended approval of this request, and the commission recommended approval by a unanimous vote. And I apologize, I did not cite the concerns from the property owners who responded in opposition. Their main concerns were they wanted more information about the intended uses and did not want to see an unplanned mix of buildings and businesses going on this part. Now I'm pleased to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sager. Questions on item 7-7 for the sake. Okay, Mr. Griffith looks like he has a question.
I'm sorry. Would you repeat their concerns?
Yes.
I apologize.
They wanted more information about the intended use of the property, and they did not want to see an unplanned mix of buildings and businesses going on this lot. They wanted to see something, honestly, more like a planned development district where you have a plan of how the entire site works.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Joy.
Those businesses or offices that are there currently, they are not retail, is that correct?
That's correct. There are professional offices, and then you have the Academy Sports Center.
And the academy is immediately to the east.
Yes.
Correct, but between this property and academy, there is a set of
Professional offices.
Those are the people, when they go up, go north, there's another, I guess that's a professional office.
I believe so, yes.
And then over to the east of that is social security office, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So the concern that these professional offices had to do with not knowing what their plans were.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, do you know whether or not there's been conversation between?
Not that I know. Between the applicant and the business owners, not that I know of. One of the letters in opposition said that the applicant should reach out to them, so that would make me think maybe they haven't, but I'll let the applicant address that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Don't go far. All right, council, how do you want, what are your thoughts about this? You okay with the public hearing for all of them? Want to go separately? I want to.
I prefer on these separate.
All right, so. Okay. So we'll do them all separately? Is that just,
That's my preference.
Here's what you think.
I really don't want that.
To my right, what do you guys think? Separately. Okay. Okay, so I'd remind folks that might be participating via Zoom or video conference tonight that if you want to speak on your item, please you click on the raise hand feature and we will call on it. Okay? Okay. So let's begin let's start the public hearings with item 7.2. Item 7.2 is on page 482. I'll open the public hearing for item 7.2. This is zone case 2400B. Anyone that would like to speak in opposition to this case, please come forward. Okay, how about anyone in favor of proposal? Good evening, Mr. Holman.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members, Ontario Holman with Eagle Reed Associates with 1601 Academy Inn. I'll just lay out a few additional items that Ms. Sager didn't include. She did a very good job of laying out the zoning on this property. I want to add to that a little bit if I can. The purpose for our request is for us to be able to build a behavioral hospital. We have other medical uses in the area. Of course, we have multifamily to the south. We had a bit of a conundrum in our current zoning code because there's not frankly, a lot of opportunity in our current zoning for hospital uses. It's currently IDP zoning. We couldn't go to specific use and stay within the IDP district because we don't meet the acreage requirement. So the only other option for us was to go to AM zoning, which allows all of the medical uses by right. So on the zoning map, it's probably going to look a little bit odd, but if you're on the ground, it's very compatible with what else is going on out there. So I also wanted to let you know that I'm speaking on behalf of NEP Lubbock, who is in contract to purchase the property. They will lease they're developing a lease the property to Ocean's Behavioral Hospital. They'll have some inpatient stay. It's for adults with behavioral issues. Looking forward to seeing the project come up out of the ground and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Terry. Questions for Terry? Mr. Patterson Harris.
I have a question, Mr. Coleman.
Yes, ma'am.
What would be the entrance way on Princeton Street?
Yes,
Or
yeah.
what would, is that where?
Yes, ma'am. Princeton extends off to the east of North Quaker. It runs in front of the current Trust Point facility. We'll extend it another few hundred feet with our plat that we're working on right now. Stay the same width, basic geometry, and then our drive approach will be off of Princeton.
And they can drive in and find their way and come back out on Princeton as well.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Ms. George.
Mr. Holman, this is one of those cases where we have the future land use plan that sets out the zoning that's requested, but we've had some of these where it just didn't fit. And so do you anticipate, as I do, that plan will be revised if this is approved?
Well, I can't speak to if the future land use plan will be revised or not. And I might also add that the
future land use plan sets out land use, not specifically zoning per se. So does this affect a change to the comp plan? That's above my pay grade. But I look at what's on the ground, and this seems, I did state at Planning and Zoning Commission, and it was my thought that over time, I think this area, the complexion of this area is probably going to change. There's more multifamily as student housing is now reached, north of the loop. We have this sort of collection of medical and quasi-medical uses in the area. I think long-term, I'm not sure that this is going to remain industrial in terms of land use.
Well, I think my question goes to, if I put up a zoning map right now, and it will be a different color, and it will show this area not to be a, I anticipate that change in the UC is what I'm assuming.
That I do not know. I'm not sure that the UDC affects the comp plan. It just adapts. It's informed by the comp plan. So I'm not sure how those, if I'm answering your question correctly, but I'm not sure.
Well, what we've been running into are cases where it's zoned one way, but it's because of the uses just around it, it's not appropriate. So we need to fix it.
Right. Maybe the best way I can address your comments are, I look at the comp plan as a bit of a 30,000 foot more fuzzy kind of view of land uses. And when we get into zoning, every tract has its own peculiarities. And I think we should always look at the individual tracts and the surroundings.
The surrounding uses.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Solomon. Thank you. Appreciate it. I've been advised that we had no one that raised their hand on the line to comment on this item. Anyone else that would like to speak in favor of item 7.2? Okay, we'll close the public hearing on item 7.2. Council will begin consideration. Is there a motion? Thank you, Mr. Griffith, for the motion. Ms. Joy for the second. Council, is there discussion on this? Is there discussion on this, Ms. Joy?
Oh,
Okay, make sure. Okay, make sure. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion to approve item 7.2 on first reading, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed by the very same sign? Motion carries 7-0. We can't get that facility built quick enough for the needs in our community. Okay, let's move to item 7.3. Item 7.3 is zone case 0804B. It's on page 497. This is the request of Autry Engineering for Brazos Brothers to change two-family district R2 from single family, just north of the loop and just west of Interstate 27. We will open the public hearing for item 7.3. Is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to item 7.3? Anyone in opposition to item 7.3? Okay, how about anyone in favor of item 7.3? Opponent here for item 7.3. Okay. Remind anybody that would like, I just got a note saying no hands raised for item 7.3. One before we close the public hearing, one final opportunity. Okay, I'll close the public hearing on item 7.3. Open the floor for a motion to begin consideration. Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Massey. Council, we've got a motion, a second. Is there discussion on item 7.3? Ms. Joy.
This one bothers me a little bit because there was quite a bit of opposition to this change. Because it was going from R1 to R2. And I don't know if the proponent has reached out to those who were in opposition and resolved it. Because the proponent's not talking and the opposition's not talking. I think, and I was at planning and zoning, when this case came up, the concern was they were gonna build duplexes. Is that right, Ms. Sager? Can you speak to that?
Yes, that's correct. That was the main concern from the homeowners who were in opposition. But the applicant stated his intent is to build garden homes, which is just another form of the single family home. And his proposed lot layout, how he will subdivide the property, were lots that are smaller than the minimum size requirement for a duplex. So he would not be allowed to build duplexes on those size of lots.
And so that may have been communicated to the opposition.
Yes, I know it was definitely communicated at the meeting, so hopefully to the opposition as well.
Other comments or questions? Mr. Childs, you good with this?
I'm good.
Okay, not sure. All those in favor of the motion on the floor to approve item 7.3 on first read, please say aye. Aye. Opposed by that same sign? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, let's move to zone case 7.4. This is, excuse me, item 7.4, zone case 2565E. This is the case for to change zoning to specific use for a travel trailer park. I'll now open the public hearing on item 7.4. One that would like to speak in opposition to item 7.4, please come forward. Anyone that would like to speak in opposition? Okay, anyone that would like to speak in favor of item 7.4?
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Neil Patel, I'm on 2206, 24th Street on Tech Terrace. I'm here representing my parents, Whitland and Daryl Patel. They're the applicant. I have a presentation I prepared for Planning and Zoning Commission. I'd like to be appropriate to show. So,
That'd be great. Staff can help you set that up. Just give us just a moment, Mr. Patel.
Okay, good evening all. The purpose of this presentation is just to kind of give a better vision of the property and to address some of the concerns that the Planning and Zoning Commission had. So just to start off, this is a recreational park. It's synonymous with the travel trailer park as with the code. The code definition for an RV is a temporary living quarters for recreational camping, travel, and seasonal use. And this distinction is important because it's not a permanent dwelling. So our goal is to provide a luxurious short-term stay for guests with our amenities, something similar to a contemporary hotel. Our target demographics are those traveling to Lubbock for short-term travel, RVs less than 10 years old, families, tourists, things like that. So here are kind of some pictures of our target demographics. So bicycling vehicles, cycling, things like that. Here's kind of a intro site plan. Has some visuals on it. So the key points here are where we'll be offering some modern amenities, things like a laundry room, a gym, showers, things like recreational activities, like a basketball court, tennis court, things like that. Nice little pool there. And so again, all of this is for simplicity appreciation going on. This is the early rendering. The Savior did a great job of presenting this book. So there were some concerns about the bay size, and so this is kind of what this is addressing here. So the bay itself will be roughly about 59 feet long, so that's good for accommodating most RVs. It's not long enough, so one of the concerns that the Planning and Zoning Commission had was that this would not become a permanent residence, kind of a manufactured home site. And so we kind of addressed this with the bay size. That will there's just no capacity for manufactured homes there, it's just not long enough. And then another concern was the fence, and so this southeast border here, that dark line right there is the proposed fence. That also extends along the western front right there. So there are also some other concerns. The first was the length of stay. I fence, kind of going back to the,
Before you go, tell us about that fence.
yes.
Solid brick, what's
It's
the,
a,
what the materials?
yeah, Mr. Mayor, so thank you for the question. It's a 6-foot tall solid wood fence.
Solid wood.
Solid wood fence, yeah. And so, again, this is kind of the early, we're, more than happy to work with the commission, the council, or whatever is appropriate to, this site, so. Yeah, so some other concerns with the commission, there's not a length of stay specified within the code. So something that we were going to do was kind of set as a private entity, a 14-day maximum stay to ensure that this is a short-term stay thing with a one option renewal. So the absolute maximum stay is 28 days, and this resets every other 30 days. So that ensures that no one is just unlimited, just kind of staying here and making this permanent residence. So again, we really don't anticipate travelers taking more than 3 to 5 days. Our vision for this is people are just traveling through. So let's say you're coming in from Florida, with a nice RV, and you're traveling to the Grand Canyon, passing through Lubbock. You're just here for a couple of days, passing through Lubbock, or if you're here for a football game or something, you're here for the weekend. Again, we're really anticipating what's taking more than 3 to 5 days. And so it fits our kind of less than 30 days is equal to a short-term stay argument. And again, this was to address the permanent residence and manufactured home concerns that were there. As far as the manufactured home capabilities are concerned, so the length of the bay is roughly 59 to 60 feet. Most RVs are 20 to 40 feet long. An average citywide mobile home is 66 to 80 feet long. So it just won't fit in there. We did have some concerns from neighboring properties, things like devaluation of their own properties, and so we respectfully disagree. The RV Reserve Park vision will cut some development into the area. The development includes water facilities and amenities that emphasize the appreciative nature of the property. And again, we're targeting travel trailers less than 10 years of age to maintain that aesthetically pleasing nature. And so we'll have that fence again. And the specific permit request is for commercial use only, so it's not for residential, not for residency. And this is a sales tax and revenue generating use, and so it's comparable to adjacent commercial uses. Here are some rough examples of similar properties around Texas. So first one is our Fredericksburg RV Resort in Fredericksburg, Texas. As you can see, it's a nice looking property with very luscious lawns and greens and things like that. And so it's kind of a vision we're also envisioning here. The pool, those are some of the amenities we'll be offering. There's some sources in that. I'm happy to take any questions or that you might have.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I've been notified that we had no opposition, no one that's raised their hand to speak on either side. Are there others, Mr. Patel, before we let you go, is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this? Okay, let's close the public hearing. Let's get a motion. Mr. Patel, stay close by. We very well may have questions for you. So I'll open the floor for a motion to give consideration of item 7. Thank you, Mr. Massey. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Okay, council, the proponent is here if you have questions for the proposal on this. Ms. Patterson Harris.
I'm trying to understand the wet retention rate. Help me.
Thank you, Councilman, for the question. And so, as of now, this is not the final actual renovation of the property, so we'll be working with the Planning and Zoning Commission to design that. But the wet retention lake is intended to be outdoor, like fishing and things like that. Nothing too crazy, and then there'll also be a pool. But is there anything specific about the wet retention lake you're concerned about?
I was just curious as to how it's formed and what it is.
Yes, yes, ma'am. So this was an early rendering, but yes. So our goal is, it probably won't be that size. Our goal is to have kind of an outdoor fishing and activities area for our customers to enjoy as they travel through.
Is that a drainage lake?
No, ma'am. I don't believe so. That's not. So we're still working with the architecture and designing the final property, but as far as the some of the main components that we'll be retaining are things like a wooden fence, amenities, and things like that.
So I'm still having trouble with that, but you just piqued my interest when you said this is not the final draft.
Yeah, so as far as the, some things we want to do is kind of make the design more efficient. But as far as the main elements of the design will remain the same. The final vision will look very similar to what you're seeing right now. This actual rendering was made before the concerns about the fence and the concerns about the bay were made. We just need to address those in the rendering. So this is just for us to kind of visualize the property itself. But yeah.
But the wet retention lake has always been there.
Right.
Okay, I'm not understanding how that, are you creating it and there's a runoff from the trailers? Is that where that goes, or help me understand?
No, ma'am, this is not a kind of a drainage area. This is a lake that we will be making, that will have fishes and things like that there, so for customers that come through, they can enjoy some simple fishing activities being outdoors.
How many spaces are at this location? There's a whole lot.
Are you referring to the base ma'am?
No, to the spaces for the, what you said, where the trailers would go, the actual spaces.
Right, the base, yes ma'am, so the code has a maximum of 14 bays, I believe.
No, spaces, S-P-A-C-E-S.
How many are these
How many are
Oh,
these
slots,
spaces?
yes, so the code limits that to 14 bricks. And so,
And that gives you how many?
that gives us roughly about 140, we have about 10.
Yeah, because I stopped counting up real quick, because there's a whole lot, and I'll ask you this question too. Two more questions, Mr. Mayor, if you'll indulge me. How would you be able to tell the age of those trailers that would come into the property?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our kind of reason for the age isn't so much as to kind of just deny those that are we're not like checking to see how old they are, but our goal is to maintain a kind of an aesthetically pleasing nature of the property. And so we don't want to admit maybe some that are too old or something like that. So our goal kind of, I think this is a good, so the top left there, right there is kind of our goal. So it's not so much as to deny vehicles that are too old. We won't be checking their age or anything like that. But if there are some concerns, and again, the reason for that age is just kind of a descriptive factor is to maintain a pleasing nature for the property and for some of the concerns that we had surrounding the property. So
I was just asking because you indicated that you won't allow anything more than 10 years old. I think that's what I heard.
that's our target, yes, ma'am.
They're trying to keep cousin Eddie down.
Okay. Okay. One more question.
Yes, ma'am.
There was some opposition. There was an individual that submitted a letter of opposition. Have you reached out to that individual to discuss?
No, that's kind of so we tried to address those concerns there. The main concern was that it was kind of an open property and it might have some visual negative aspects of that. So that's the planning and zoning commission were also concerned with that. So we kind of went back and then put in the fence and the site.
But there, you didn't reach out to the individual who is with the VA clinic to discuss some of the concerns that were conveyed and what you were looking to do all of a sudden became satisfactory. The reason I'm asking is that because that's within district number 2, and I took the liberty to speak with some of the folks in there, and they had concerns, and it goes far past just the fence that you're saying that you'd be willing to place there. I'm concerned that this is not the final draft for us to really understand what you're looking at placing here. There's a huge concern of the types of trailers that you will have there. There's nothing, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me, that we have that can say that it can be this or can't be that. And while you'll say that, changing this, you and your parents decide next week if this will change to that specific use. If you changed your mind, it's there. But in speaking with a lot of the citizens in the area, they have great concerns about this type of facility going in that location.
Yeah, thank you for the concern, Councilman Mercer. So we're more than happy to, base the approval on contingent on specific measures. And so we're more than happy to work with, whatever the council feels deems necessary for this. So if approval is contingent on specific instances, that's fine.
Ms. Joy.
I think a lot of the confusion, and this, Cider, you may want to come up and keep us on track here, but under the current code, it says travel, mobile home, and they're put together.
It does, and we have a very long definition of travel trailer. I brought it with me just in case this came up, if you'd like for me to read it.
No, I think we found the travel trailer definition, but the concern was that because they don't separate the two, that they could do mobile homes in there under the current code.
Correct.
Now, you've been very good about trying to assure us that you're going to do a lot of this by agreement. But to Ms. Patterson-Harris's point, if you sold the land and didn't develop it, then we're stuck with having changed the zone. And that's a possibility that there could be mobile homes as opposed to travel trailer. Okay, now that may get corrected in the future, but right now that's where we are. And I think that's where some of the concern is. Also, if I recall correctly, planning and zoning, we couldn't tie the zoning to that site plan, or because they didn't. But there were only 5 members there at the time, so I don't know.
You're correct, they didn't, and I will let the city attorney's office correct me if I'm wrong, but since this is a specific use case, you have the option to place conditions.
Okay, so that's kind of why we're here tonight, is it got punted. Okay, so I think we do need some conditions placed. I do think if we can, it's tied to a site plan. And then that way we've got some assurances about what we're getting into in case the inevitable might happen, that they don't go forward. So how do we do that, Ms. Decker?
Well, this is your request.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. So this is the most updated site plan that was presented to the planning and zoning commission. We do have this site plan. I believe you do have the option to tie it to the site plan if you don't like. If you don't want to tie it down as specifically to the site plan, you might consider limiting the base size, tying it to a certain size of the base. So they still have the flexibility to move things around on the site plan, but that way you're limiting the size to where mobile home can not be placed there.
Because we're not able to strike mobile home.
Correct.
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 Okay. All right.
Ms. Patterson-Harris.
I just want to say this, I'm gonna sit this right there. I can't support this, even with whatever restrictions we place on our citizens who are in the district that say, we don't want that right there. There are tons of concerns, and I can't support it, knowing that I'm sitting here to represent you and give my support. So I just want you to know that. And it's because I have this strange way of finding my way to citizens and hearing what they say and speaking with them and telling them.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson-Harris. Mr. Patel, on your site plan, so you'll have one point of entry and one point of exit. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Have you talked to TxDOT about that?
Sorry?
Have you talked to TxDOT about that?
We have not. The primary concern here with the entry and exit was we want there to be traffic on the residential side. So the
Understand.
western front.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, and the other question I would have is how would you, if you're coming from the south or the southeast, how do you get in?
You would probably just have to go in the access way that queue that's into the, so this is where the interstate is over here.
Right, I'm talking about so the interstate's down south there, you'd be coming over the overpass on Avenue Q or Slate Highway, whichever, how you want to describe it. But if I can't turn left right there. We got to do it. And that's gonna have an unintended consequence, because you have to find someplace to make a U-turn with a travel trailer, right? Mr. Atkinson, you're a bit of a subject matter expert on something on this topic.
Mayor, I think you're correct. If you're coming in on Q, heading into town, I think that triangular area that's Avenue Q South Drive where that's notated, that's where you're starting that split and that slope is what ultimately builds that. So you would not be able to turn left to access where it says C1, which I presume is the entrance.
Ms. Bashairs.
Which in essence creates one of the concerns that you're gonna have to make your way around that residential area in order to come to that space, all the way around. So that was one of the concerns that was voiced.
Councilwoman, President, so I don't believe potential customers will probably go through residential areas. So if we designate this as the only entry exit point, and most travelers will be probably using a navigation system to get to the property. And so it will automatically route them through a certain way to, they will probably come on without having to make that U-turn right there.
Mr. Griffin. Thank you, Mayor. How do people access the VA clinic today? In only one direction. Only one direction.
No, there's two. There are two directions.
So you could go back.
There's one back in the back. I have to take back in the back. It's in the back and in the front.
So the back is through residential.
It comes right off of right past the residential.
This property was originally Holden Dots commercial. Correct.
There's like three of you in the room that remember that. I want to make sure that you was on two of those.
And I believe when the nursery was a private business, its access was same. Of course, in the early days, that's where famous traffic circle was. Infamous traffic circle. But Holden Dodson Nursery, that was the same access point. The size of the spaces. Sager. So you said that could be tied to that specific use.
We're not, because it's a big condition of the property on a specific use case.
I do applaud the use and redevelopment of this corridor. And I know that there's a need for this kind of product as RV sales are through the roof in this country. So people are traveling within the Great 48. And our city is a destination. So I do applaud entrepreneurial spirit of this particular product.
Mr. Atkinson, we're dealing with TxDOT and a couple other situated places when it comes to curb cuts. My recollection is that they're requiring 385 feet, is that what it? There's quite a distance between curb cuts. I know we're dealing with that on a piece of property that we've just actually taken over, taking the road back on South Slide. That's a problem at 114th, as I recall. I don't want to approve zoning on something that the only way in and out is not going to be approved by TxDOT. And I mean, so what would be the appropriate time chronology for something like this? Got to get a zone change, I guess, before you can go to those guys, right?
Correct. The property has what appears to be more than sufficient frontage to have 2 curb cuts.
Right.
On that piece of the queue, I think
Just have to, they have to redesign, potentially redesign.
possibly spread those out. You know, they can achieve their separation. If you look at where I'll call it the furthest north of the drives is for the VA, you've still got a very lengthy frontage. Trying to look in a little more detail on the construction where you come out of that overpass. There's actually a median all the way up to 58.
I know.
So I guess council's raised a very valid question for anybody coming in from that direction. How are they going to get turned around? Come back down that one way to get to there. I believe the applicant, I don't want to misquote you, sir. I believe you attempted this traffic flow to keep your customers off of Avenue L, the residential street.
That's correct.
Thank you for doing that. Trying to figure out where those rigs coming from that direction are going to turn
I wonder if we had it on an actual map, showing where the exits are coming off of, coming off. It's kind of, I mean, this is planned, but it doesn't show anything surrounding it or any of the,
So, Mr. Mayor, if you would like, maybe I might be able to get this to come up off my computer.
yeah.
Here we see what the highway looks like as it turns into Avenue Q South. A white strip in the middle is the median. It's a large piece of property. It only has 2 frontages.
This might be when it doesn't develop.
Mr. Massey.
Mr. Atkinson, is there any way that the proponent could get some kind of direction from TxDOT if this case was postponed? To be able to adjust the entrances on that, or the TxDOT not even give?
The applicant owns the property. I don't know the TxDOT differentiates the use, they just differentiate.
At least give direction on guidelines on the curb cuts.
Yes, I think they can do that.
So do you understand what we're talking about? Is that your entrance and your exit are too close together for TxDOT regulation?
Okay. So, we do reach out to TxDOT.
Well, what I was about to suggest was I would make a motion to postpone your case to date certain so that we don't render a decision on it. And that you reach out to TxDOT and understand what their rules are on those curb cuts, work with planning, and then we'll come back and hear your case.
That sounds good to me.
Well, and you might want to consider a different entrance. It's not necessarily on. And that's why I think you need some time to look at this.
Yeah, and I'll just tell you, as someone who's drug a 36-foot fifth wheel around, if you miss that entrance, you're gonna drive for a while before you, if you're coming from the south. The other point is, yes, most of those seasoned operators will use a GPS and they won't miss it. They'll route their route to come the right direction. But I think it's best probably to postpone. I would make a motion. So how much time do you think? April 13th, probably too soon. What's the first meeting in May? It's not on my calendar. Yeah. I would make a motion to postpone item 7.4 to date certain, May 11th.
Okay.
Second. Okay, we got a motion and a second to postpone item 7.4 to May 11, 2021. And all those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed by the same sign?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1. We'll hear this again on May 11. Thank you, Mr. Patel. Thank you. Okay, let's go down to item 75. Item 75 is on page 540, it's case 2573R. In order, excuse me, it's a public hearing. So I will open the public hearing on item 75. And open the floor for anyone who would like to speak in opposition to 75. Case 2573R. Anybody in opposition? Okay, how about anybody in support of being a proponent for item 75? Good evening, Mr. Dillon.
The engineering 65 and 68. I have nothing to add, just wanted to make myself available for questions.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Dooley. Anything for Mr. Let's see if there's anyone else that would like to speak in favor of 75. We have no raised hands on Zoom. Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Our council will begin consideration. Is there a motion on 75? Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Thank you, Ms. George. Second, council, is there discussion on this? Want Mr. Dooley back up?
Yeah, really, this is an area that already has A2, high density A2. It's also developing some other, I call them products around it. And I did not see any objection from any of the residential that is to the west.
Residential to the west is duplexes mostly.
Right.
And
So
this is
this-
going to be a townhome property. I think it's going to be pretty compatible. It'll be a gated type community looking involved. They'll have their own amenities, leasing office, and things of that nature.
I think it's that part of the west part of the spot. Thank you.
Anything else for Mr. Dooley? Thank you, Court. Okay, we've got a council further questions or comments on case 75. We've got a motion on the floor to approve 75 on first reading. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed by that very same sign? The motion carries 7-0. Okay, let's go down to item 7.6, case 3426. This is on page 556. Let's open the public hearing for that. I'll open that public hearing right now. I'll ask those who would like to speak in opposition, please come forward.
My name is Martha Zelinski, and I live at 122 on Norfolk Avenue, which is the corner of 122nd and Norfolk across from what they want to build. I want to first speak to the proposed zone change to the garden offices. This change will allow commercial businesses across the street from my residence. Garden offices may be built up to 2 stories in height, including many business lots, all that would increase the traffic flow in the area. Some to higher degree than others. In the zoning ordinance, garden offices zoning next to residential zoning requires all solid screening fence. This requirement applies only to the back side or the rear of those garden offices. This will front to my house, where I'll look directly at them. My daily view from my house would provide, my daily view from my house and neighboring houses will be of a commercial business across the street. This does not fit with the nature of the existing neighborhood, which is zoned R1 and R2 to the east and the south. When viewing our garden offices only, has typically been in Southwest Lubbock, that will front arterial streets and not collector streets such as 122nd. I believe that this zone change would severely reduce the property value and my investment in my resident and increase the traffic flow in my area. Proposed zone change to high density apartments. High density apartment district, this change would dramatically increase traffic in the area. As stated by the developer at the P&Z meeting, there will be one entrance that will be located on Memphis. This will divert traffic flow down to Memphis to 114 and 122nd. If a residential subdivision were built on this property, there would be multiple access points to Memphis and 122nd. As there are no assurances of what would be built or the number of units it would include if this were passed, the building could be built 3 stories in height. This would also be the view from my residence and would dramatically change the character of the existing residential neighborhoods to the east and south. If you look at the existing and newly constructed apartment complexes in this part of town, all of these front on arterial streets and not collector streets. If this zone change was to pass, would it set a precedence that this is now okay to place apartments and garden offices on collector streets and not arterial streets? Again, I believe this zone change would severely reduce the property value of my home. When I purchased my home, I knew it was on a collector street and eventually would see more traffic than what would normally happen on a less traveled residential street. I also understood that over time, the area to the west along Quaker would be developed commercially. They would be required to place a screening fence along 122nd Street and hopefully on the back or east side. I also understand that once 122nd is completed from Norfolk to Memphis, the traffic will increase. The fact that Laura Bush Middle School with over 1,000 students in commercial development at 114th and Quaker and along Indiana will be factors that drive this increase. By allowing the proposed zone change to garden offices and A2 apartments, the traffic increase will be dramatically compared to the zoning of this area, which will remain a R1 and R2. The future land use plan shows this area to be low density residential. I hope that you will see that the benefit of our neighborhood to follow the land use to keep the areas of R1 or R2.
Thank you. Well done. Thank you, Ms. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, anyone else, others that would like to speak in opposition?
Yes, thank you, Council and Mr. Mayor. My name is Trent Hilliard. I'm at 4006 124th Street, also in the Work Heights or Solaris Estates Edition. They're definitely object to this large apartment complex coming in. As Ms. Zelinski said, this is a precedent that we don't have here in Lubbock, building apartments within the square mile area. Usually they're on the outside. And when we built there, we understood that there was going to be a lot of things coming in. There was growth that way. And we knew we'd been there for 8 years. We were there before Walmart was there, before HEB was there, before Academy was there, and had no objections to those. We already have apartment buildings that are going in on 114th Street. We have apartment buildings that have been built next to Laura Bush on Indiana. We also have apartment buildings that are out on 1585 or 130th Street as well. I don't see a need to have apartments built on the interior of the square miles on these collector streets.
there's plenty of land available out in South Lubbock for somebody to find, to build other apartments out there. The developers have stated that because of the situation there with Memphis and the Play Lake, there's not room for residential homes to be built there. Yet you can see that it's a large, almost 26 acres of land. And in District 4, as I'm sure Massago, I'm sure it's aware, we have quite a few of these type situations. We've got Kings Ridge, there's 77th in Memphis, I mean, actually it's Kings Park, and 77th in Memphis, that is behind, Fazoli's, I think, a tech optometry and some of that. Then you have a Play Lake, and then you have nice homes that are built right there off of Memphis on the interior. You've got a few of those homes that are built right off of Quaker in the Lake Ridge area at about 96th Street. There's a little row of homes, and then you have the golf course, and then you have Blue Sky that's right beyond that. And then even older homes that you have right off of the loop in Memphis, located across from the Southcrest Church. You have a little plot of homes that are right there next to the Play Lake and the park that's off of loop. I think it's Miller Park right there. So the precedent has been that that we build residential areas and not apartments. I've been a resident of Lubbock for 50 years, and I can't think of any new apartment buildings that have been built on these collector streets. The only thing close that I can think of is I think Indian Creek is over there by the YWCA on Elgin and like 60th Street off of that park. And it's kind of built around the YWCA. I can't remember what the pool used to be before it was that, but Southern Fund. And so they kind of built around that many years ago. And with the movement of towns again, we were certainly knew that we were going to have all sorts of developments come in, but we did not anticipate that there would be a possibility of those developments being almost across the street from us on the interior of the square miles. So the pictures that they give us in our meetings that we've had with those of Abby Glenn saying that these what the apartments would look like, it'd be nice ones. But again, Abby Glenn is on 114th Street. It's on a main road, not on a collector street. And so, the HOA has been against this, and our last on fence is city council and mayor on this to protect us, and you guys always look out for the best interests of the city and the residents of the city, and we just hope that you do so again when considering this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Trent, we appreciate those. Okay, anyone else that would like to speak in opposition? All right, how about those that would like to speak in favor of item 7.6?
Good evening. I just wanted to address some of the concerns and kind of give a little bit of history lesson. I've been here before you on several other zone cases in this area. And they've all been tested. As I'm sure you remember, this property owned by the Pitts family, it's got a pretty good sized lake in the middle. We've got lots of segmented areas on each quadrant. We've got apartments to the northeast, commercial on the northwest of the lake. To the southwest, Graco is got quite a bit of C3 zone. We've got several big box things planned and some commercial entities going in now along Quaker. The southeast corner is very similar to all the other corners. It's not really large enough to put a decent residential development in there. What we found in our due diligence with several suitors for this property, we weren't able to reclaim what we would normally be able to reclaim in a lake to develop. We don't have the sewer depth for
getting 25, 26, 28 acres of residential. Like we hoped, we're only able to get about 15 acres. And so this is kind of the best fit for this property with the reduced area. And this kind of goes back to the traffic question. This has got collectors on each side. These collectors are designed and sized for this amount of traffic. We're going to have approximately the same number of housing units in this apartment zone area that you would if it was all residential in the lake. So a comparable border section. So it'll be a similar number of residences and trips for people going in and out of homes. The garden office location does front 122nd Street. This isn't setting a precedence. We've got other garden office zone property on 122nd Street to the west. Just east of Slide, we go maybe 1,000 or more feet east of Slide, facing 122nd Street from both sides. So this has happened in other locations, and it's been successful. We got that along. Oklahoma State's very popular, nice subdivision. It's got nice offices, very popular. We feel like this is a good buffer between Brook Heights and the backside of Walmart and these other C3 buildings. Luckily, the Brook Heights residences side up to 122nd. Is actually facing or fronting on 122nd, so that certainly helps. Traffic for these garden offices are going to be 85. These are not going to be random businesses with garden office. The code for the apartments, I feel like it fully meets just about anything we want. There's no precedence being set here for that as well. We've zoned several apartment complexes recently on the corners of two collectors. We just did one on 58th and Wausau. We've had one at Iowa 26. There are numerous that have been built by Tigris along 26 to the west of Milwaukee. Those are on collector corners. And so this has been done, it's been done successfully. This is what we feel is the best use of property.
Okay, we'll finish the vote here and make quite added questions, okay? Other proponents, I've just been told there's no one that raised their hand in favor online, so.
Make it full screen, but we'll just, I think y'all can see that. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for your time and your service to our city this evening. My name is Andy Bean, Love Land Company, 12203 Quaker Avenue. Thank you for giving me a few minutes to add to Kristen's earlier presentation and Corey's comments. So Lubbock Land Company has been developing in Lubbock for over 30 years. We've developed 14 communities and are working on our 15th at Hatton Place. Our communities have included residential, commercial, and multifamily uses. We're currently developing, as I said, Hatton Place, which is a half section of land that shares a half mile of adjacency to the Pitts property. So as you can see on the screen, the full sections in red, Hatton Place is bordered in blue. The Pitts property is bordered in yellow. Brook Heights subdivision is bordered in lime green. And then the zone case before you tonight is in a black border with the letters GO for the 5-acre garden office boundary and A2 for the 20-acre apartment boundary zoning. We are also the incoming developer on the remaining 29 acres of Brook Heights community. That's the area in gold at the east end of the homes in the lime green box. So we're obviously very invested in the area financially and with our development efforts. Currently had in place in the future of Brook Heights.
With this zone case, it's our intent to control our own destiny on what develops on this remaining transitional land that separates Haddon Place and Brook Heights from the backside of the uses that have been described along Quaker and 114th Street. As you just heard, we're requesting, again, transitional zoning to garden office and apartments. And the dividing line may look interesting on a general map, but as you consider the drainage easement that will be required, indicated by the blue arrow, moving from south to north, where God's already currently sending a lot of water. That will be the dividing line from the garden office zoning to the apartment zoning. And by us coming in as the developer in the black box area, we'll be able to grant the drainage easement that has stalemated Brook Heights from finishing out development, as well as 122nd Street from blowing through from Quaker all the way to Indiana. So there will be substantial work on the collector roads of Memphis and 122nd Street that we'll be working on quickly. Again, moving from Quaker east down 122nd Street, our zoning request provides a step down from the existing C3 zoning, where you see a current Brahms and Starbucks going in on the front pad sites, backed by the future use that is C3 zoning. Step down to our garden office zoning that I'll have a picture of in a minute of what we plan to do there. It will be 1 story. It will have brick facade, and we've got some other conditions that we've talked to the Brook Heights HOA that we're willing to agree to make that a good neighbor to those homes. And then again, that steps down to the drainage easement and then to the apartment zoning that I'll get into more here shortly. We believe, as Corey's mentioned, multiple engineering reasons, that the apartment zoning is the highest and best use for that 20-acre area. We are concerned if it isn't us that acquires this zoning for multifamily, and if it isn't us that develops it, that someone else will acquire that zoning eventually and build something less desirable for the area. In efforts to control our own destiny, we're making plans to develop an aesthetically pleasing way that provides a place for Lubbock citizens to call home, live, and thrive. Before we move on, just a little bit more on the drainage easement. As we look at the whole section identified in red, it's again, not only is the water moving from south to north from Brook Heights to the pits, it's moving from west to east on Haddon Place. So we can also grant those easements and allow Brook Heights to put more residential lots on the ground to meet the extremely high housing demand we have in Lubbock. A quick background on our timeline to get in front of you today. Our original planning and zoning case was scheduled for February 4th. After we went under contract on this land, we immediately went into our first step of attempting to acquire the highest and best use for zoning. At the time when the first planning and zoning commission meeting was coming up, we voluntarily postponed our hearing 30 days. At that time, we didn't feel there was enough time allotted for the surrounding landowners and homeowners to have conversations necessary to understand who was behind the zone case, as it is titled, the landowner's name, and what our vision was. At the time of the originally scheduled planning and zoning commission hearing, again, we postponed and then it allowed us to communicate in more depth with those around this zone case. Much time, most of that spent with the Brook Heights Homeowners Association and individual homeowners. We have since made efforts to meet with everyone who wanted to meet. We have met with Brook Heights HOA board, and again, several productive conversations have come out of that. As we're in the early stages of planning for these land uses, step one is to acquire the preferred zoning. We do not have a site plan. We do not have elevations. Our plans, however, will meet the setback requirements for the zoning established. And ultimately and simply, we plan to develop and build what the zoning allows. We understand many questions surround this case, and again, after many conversations, understanding concerns of those around us, including the concerns we have as the developer to the east and coming into the south. We have been working on a separate agreement with the Brook Heights HOA. We've agreed in principle to many conditions and concessions, and are working through the details in efforts to formalize that agreement. I can go into the details on the multiple bullet points that we've talked through with them. I've got some pictures that I can run through, but I just ultimately want to make sure that you guys know I'm available for questions this evening. So in summary, as you heard from city staff, the property is transitional in nature and will act as a buffer between commercial, existing multifamily uses and the residential communities of Patton Place and Brook Heights, both of which we are the developer of, and we desire to acquire the zoning of A2 and GO with the volunteer conditions, which seems to be the inevitable future zoning of the property. And as one of the largest stakeholders in the area, we will develop this property to be pleasing and cohesive to the surrounding area. With that, you want to see more pictures or hear more about our agreements, but for God's sake, Joy,
I think it's probably appropriate for you to go through some of your conversations and what you guys, what you agreed to do. I think that's a probably pertinent.
Okay. So I've got a few more pictures that'll kind of flash up, but I think a clarifying point with the homeowners was that the garden office zoning extends beyond all of the existing homes as you move from west to east along Quaker, followed by the drainage easement and then the apartments that are directly adjacent to current vacant land that we will be developing in the future.
So no one would be right across the street from the apartment complex.
So this is the view if you stand on the garden office zoning property of existing homes. And this is the view if you stand on the apartment zoning proposed, looking at future existing land. And running through some of our conditions, we are agreeable to install the primary entrance. It won't be the only way to get in, but it will be the primary entrance where the leasing office would face off of Memphis. There would be an exit along 122nd Street for fire purposes. The primary entrance on Memphis, the apartments adjacent to that vacant land that's currently vacant today, where the apartment zoning is up against. The future apartments will be no taller than 2-story. Apartment developer will construct and maintain an independent park amenity with the playground equipment. As you envision driving from Quaker east to Memphis, and you see the garden offices, and then you get across the drainage easement, you see the apartments coming up on your left, again, max 2-story. What we will have between the back of curb and the property line, sidewalk, tree rows, fence, as a barrier between the buildings and the street. The sidewalks will be per city standards, the trees maximum of 40 feet apart. Talk about the diameter of the trees when they're installed at 3 inches. The fence height, 7-foot minimum, including masonry columns, and that fence will either be flat top cedar stained or a masonry fence along 122nd Street. Here's an example of what that would look like. This is just an example of the vehicles that will not be allowed. Only working day use vehicles may be kept in the parking lots, and this is a longer list of exclusions. It's an example of the apartments. As we talk about the garden offices, we talked about masonry along the street facing fronts of the buildings. And it was important to the homeowners to put in there to not allow the video board type signs that are very bright and may light up all night long into their windows. And so that will not be allowed along the street or up against the building. And this is an example. Brook Heights has garden offices, which we actually office in along Quaker, and we envision they'll look much like that. And this is an example of the garden office. And with that, that concludes my presentation and remain available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bean. We'll make copy of that. Okay. Other speakers in favor of this project?
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Ross McMillan. I reside at 3913 127. I am here in my capacity as the president and board member of the Brook Heights Homeowners Association. And thank you to Andy throughout this process. As he mentioned, We have been in very extensive discussions with them on more than one occasion. And this has been a very large endeavor on our part as three employees anyway, to represent our neighborhood. I'll already prepared a statement that I'll answer any questions that y'all may have. In conjunction with Lubbock Land Company, Brook Heights HOA has been working diligently to develop a list of agreed-upon concessions that we believe will be beneficial not only Lubbock Land Company, but to Brook Heights regarding this rezoning submitted. Through numerous discussions, Lubbock Land Company and Brook Heights have worked together to develop a list of agreed-upon concessions that are currently being finalized in a legal agreement between our two parties. Brook Heights Board of Directors is prepared to offer our support for Lubbock Land Company's rezoning case on the condition, and I really can't emphasize that part enough, on the condition of the soon-to-be drafted document, which I actually received this evening while we were in here. I'll have it to them tomorrow for review. In its signed and notarized form, be included in the variance request. A similar agreement was drafted in conjunction with Orchard Park residents for the development of apartments currently under construction on 114th Street. The board looks to council to provide reassurance and enforcement of proper construction of this property. Failure of this document to be attached to the variance will result in our rescinding any and all support and a formal objection to the rezoning request. As I just mentioned, I did, while we were in here this afternoon, I did get that draft and send it over to Andy, have the attorneys look it over. Hope that we can get any wrinkles ironed out and offer our full support at the second reading of this. And I'm here if y'all have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McMillan. You very well may have those questions. Okay, before we leave.
I haven't read all of this yet, I'm trying to go through quickly, but you've got electronic marquees will be put in parallel or perpendicular to 122nd Street. Did you have an issue with just saying it can't happen at all?
No, we've cleaned up that verbiage some. We've actually met with our attorneys, our real estate attorneys today, and we've come together on a document that we believe better lays all that out the way you would want it to be laid out. And we're not saying we don't want any boards at all. Just the big thing was the LED, the bright LED markings. That was our big concern.
How did, and like I said, I haven't had time to read all this yet, so how have you addressed the objections that the homeowners have to being across from garden office? Have y'all addressed that?
How have we as a board? So the way we've approached this matter, as best we could, having to do whole neighborhood meetings over Zoom and everything, and Mr. Bowen and Ms. Alinsky were definitely, it was 98% opposed to this, probably more when we first found out about it. After extensive discussions with Lubbock Land Company, we did come to the understanding that yes, eventually that land will be developed at some point. The P&Z committee told us that it's going to be developed. And so we felt it prudent. Our charge as a board is to represent the best interest of the neighborhood, and we gathered a large amount of information in a very short time and presented it to our neighbors. And we ended up with, we're very much like teenagers dragging our feet. And that's not true. That's not, I don't see it. But again, my charge as the HOA president is to represent the best interest of the neighborhood, and a majority of our neighbors do now feel that this would be in the best interest of our neighborhood to come together and try to partner with the Lubbock Land Company as best as possible.
Have the Zelinski's seen this document that we just handed
I
out?
cannot attest. We posted them on Facebook for everyone to review, but I won't speak to that part of this. I think you have.
I don't know.
I can get you one.
Mr. McMillan, let's, I want to try to close the public hearing before we get into too much of this discussion. So anything else to add to your statement?
No, sir.
I'd likely call you back in a moment. Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak either in favor or against this item? Okay, we'll close the public hearing on item 7.6. And I'll open the floor for a motion.
Move to approve.
So, motion by Mr. Massengill, second, Mr. Christian, second by Mr. Christian. Okay, now let's go back to discussion. So, Latrell, why don't you continue?
Well, I just wanted to know if the Zelenskis had seen the documents handed out and see what their response might be to.
He doesn't have Facebook, so he did not. And I don't know that I did.
Do you have an extra copy for them?
I can see it on my phone.
Mr. Reed. I just want to take the opportunity to remind the council that this is a zone case. And it would be impermissible for the legislative body to make a zone change contingent on the up or down of the private contract. So just a friendly reminder that it's a zone case like any other. And the parties can reach an agreement that's between them, but you can't tie the zone change to the contingency of whether they meet an agreement or not.
They would tie it, make conditions.
If the council finds it's in the public interest, in the best interest of the public to add conditions to the zone change, they are permitted to do that.
And well, and that speaks to Mr. McMillan's request that this be made part, a condition of the zone change. What he's handed us today is what I understand. You want us to make those a condition of this zone change. Is that correct, Mr. McMillan?
My hope 2 weeks ago was that we would have this document finalized, and notarized, and signed, and beautiful, and be able to give that to you tonight. We will have it, we will have it at the second reading, and well, substantially before the second reading. I hope to have it finalized this week.
Well, even if you have the agreement,
That is a very broad strokes of, yes, ma'am.
these are the conditions that you wish to have on this zone change.
Yes, ma'am.
And that we can do.
Yes, I recommend the council will need to find that those are, that each of those are part of public interest. Those conditions that they find in the public interest in the ordinance. Yes.
But you understand what he's saying?
Yes, ma'am.
We have a legal requirement, leaving finding of public interest. But as I understand the document that you handed us, those are the conditions that you wish to be tied to this zone change.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and by the way, thank you guys for working on this. I mean, we always appreciate it.
Sir. Mr. Reader, you're comfortable with that? Yes, I just want to make sure the council. I got you. Yes, I just want to make sure the council was clear on the role they play and that the private agreement doesn't impact the role of the legislative body. That's a separate deal. Right. Unless the council finds one or more of those conditions are in the public interest. And if so, we're going to have those two.
And so with the ordinance we have on the floor need to be adjusted to reflect that.
Yes,
It would permit to amend that ordinance, correct? So even if we didn't have the finalized agreement, we could call it out and have that effective between now and the 13th. Or would you wait till the 13th and do that?
Well, if the council believes the conditions are in the public interest, they can go ahead and put them in now. Because it should really rise or fall whether they meet an agreement. Thank you. Yes, sir.
This question is.
Remind me of your name. I heard 10,000 names. I don't know if I can remember my own.
It's okay. Ross McMillan.
Ross McMillan. Okay. I had Ross. I didn't want to just call him Ross.
It's okay. We've had multiple before.
My stuff says. How many homeowners are part of the association?
We have 246 homes currently. I would assume 750 to 1,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. I don't know how many kids, but guys, I know we have some seniors. I know we have, my wife and I just at our first shop recently.
Don't count the kids, they don't.
No, they don't pay tax.
So, and I know you stated that, the board was represented there and trying to speak on their behalf. And you indicated that a majority of those individuals within the community within the housing community were in agreement with you coming to some type of agreement with, Mr. B.
Yes, ma'am. Once we had further discussion with the local plan and really started to grasp the reality of the situation, then yes, at first it was absolutely not. Again, 99% of my neighbors were opposed to this. And as I said, we were teenagers and we're here dragging on. But we are here, we showed up.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, those things are really important to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I think citizens' input and concerns are valid. I happen to be a citizen of the city myself. But I think they're valid. I like to hear them. I like to know where they stand and be okay with it. So I just wanted to not overstep in my bounds with regard to what we're deciding. I just wanted to know, how many folks were represented and the fact that a great number of them were finding well with what you've done.
And I will say, especially using our 2020 Zoom HOA meeting as a benchmark, attendance was a lot better, much more representative of our neighborhood. I think once the notices for the P&Z meeting showed up. So I think, we got a good representation there. Can't make people return calls. So.
Mr. Baskin,
And then Mr. Christian.
Mr. Weaver or Ms. Sager, you may have to help me on this. You'll recollect when we worked on the zone case for the storage center in the apartments on 114th, which was highly contested. And there were there was an agreement worked out that most of the neighborhood across 114th was agreeable to. Did we include those conditions in that case? Do y'all recall?
We did.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't speak for that case. I mean, I can't say that those were all within the public interest, but yes, we did include all of those conditions.
We pulled a lot of.
Oh, you did from that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I'm still not clear on this private agreement as conditional to this case. I'd also like to hear from Mr. Bean on his thoughts on that. Thanks, Ms. Sager.
This came up at Planning and Zoning Commission about conditions that we were repeating each other on in our presentations even a few weeks ago at Planning and Zoning Commission. And the same conversation about time conditions to the case was brought up. And the same example was used about something to the north along 114th Street. I think legal was involved at that time during Planning and Zoning Commission to comment that it was only if it was to do with health, safety, or welfare. And they advised us and the HOA to get together separately and agree on our conditions and allow zoning with no conditions to be approved. And that's how it was handled at Planning and Zoning Commission. And then the document being passed around that y'all are considering tying anything that it reads to tonight's approval, we have not seen. So I don't know what it says. I don't anticipate it would be against any of the thing that we agreed on in principle, but we would definitely prefer to not have any conditions outside of all the hours of work we've spent to get to the point we are without having a chance to review what document y'all have.
It's our same response that I read in the P&Z, that's all it is. Where we were in agreement with it, we just had some more exactness.
So as the applicant, I'm a little confused on the conditions and the direction we were given by Planning and Zoning to handle this outside of the zoning approval versus having any of them or all of them tied to the case that would not require us to go have a separate agreement that we've spent hours and now attorney time on. So clarification on that would be good.
I'm looking at the same thing.
We're,
I think the important distinction is they've got a private agreement between themselves. That's fine. But council can take a position that that's great. And if you do that, you can have nothing to do with the zone case. Or the council believes that those conditions are in the public interest, public health, safety, welfare. As a legislative body, and they feel like it is in the public interest, forget the contract, that doesn't matter. If you, as a body, feel like these conditions are important to the public, health and safety, the council can, as a body, decide to put them in the ordinance, which they did do, in the case that you were bringing up, or conditions put in, you can do that here. But I don't want the council to be confused. The private agreements, that's between them. If the council feels that these conditions are good for public interest, then you may make an amendment to put all of them, the ones you feel like are most appropriate, or none. But I hope that's helpful.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Mr. Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Mr. Weaver answered my question because of recent involvement in discussions about HOA and private agreements and relates to private landowners. I think we need to be very cautious about this, and I'm not so sure that we shouldn't we will counsel this, and especially since Mr. D said, if I understood, we had not seen this document from the HOA to receive. It's a little bothersome to me. And I don't know whether or not I'm completely understanding or feel comfortable about moving forward. I understand what Mr. Weaver said, but it bothers me a little bit about it. Let's just put it that way.
Thank you, Mr. Christian. Mr. Griffin. Thank you. This could be done secondly. The conditions. Sure. And council could approve or deny if those exacts that are listed.
The other option is we can postpone them. And let them to make sure all these conditions are acceptable. That's the other option.
Mr. Bassinger.
Well, what's happened in this case is what we like to see happen is when you have a zoning case, surrounding residents are opposed to it and they're able to get together. Obviously, it's not unanimous, but there's a majority represented by the HOA. It's obviously worked out an agreement in principle with the developer, understanding that it's imminent that the land is going to be developed. And this document is not complete, is what I understand. It's mostly complete. So I think Mr. Griffith's suggestion is sound, is to approve this case on the first reading and then let the parties finish out their document and share their information with us for about a second. With that, I'll call the question.
Okay, so we've got a motion on the floor to approve item 7.6 on first reading. The question's been called. So all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed by the very same sign?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-2. Okay, looking at item 7.7. It is on page 594. I'll open the public hearing for item 7.7. This is zone case 3427. Anyone that would like to speak in opposition, please come forward. Anyone in opposition to 7.7? Okay. How about anyone that would like to speak in support of item 7.7?
Good evening, council, mayor. My name is Will Stevens with A&D Engineering at 6515 68th Street. I'm representing our client Wheelhouse development for this zone case. I have nothing to add. I think Chris did a great job with the presentation. I will add one thing, Mr. Wade. I did reach out to, or I attempted to reach out to all of the property owners that were in opposition. I was able to talk to one of the property owners, and her main concern was that she didn't know what was going to be developed, which is about concern. Fortunately, it was a little too early on in the process to give her any kind of assurances, but we did, myself and Wheelhouse both, we did try to reach out to all of those opposition. So with that being said, if y'all have any questions, we have to get the answers.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else that would like to speak in favor of case 7.7? I've been notified that there's no hands raised online, so we will close the public hearing for item 7.7. And I'll open the floor for a motion to begin discussion. Thank you, Ms. Patterson Harris. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Council discussion.
I guess the question is, do you have any idea at this point what you may be looking at? Or not?
I know one of the kind of main developments is the QSR, food service restaurant, drive-through. That's the reason for the zoning. The other two properties, so it's about a 4-acre tract, and I think they're wanting to do parcels up into 3 tracts. I don't think they have. It's going to be something along those lines.
So it's sometimes when you have those drive-up situations, there's concern about microphones and noise and things like that. So that may be when talk to it.
Right, and I know she mentioned too there's 2 curb cuts. There's one on 19th and there's one on that blue frontage road. That she was wondering if those were going to stay. They will stay. Maybe that affects how we're not going to demolish that access from the road. So that's another assurance that we hoping to get them. So, but that's kind of the only one of those parcels that's really.
Mr. Griffith.
Thank you, Mayor. Would you say this is similar to the redeveloped textile property on the southwest side?
I would, yes, sir. You know, I think one of the similarities would be the detention pond. It's going to look a lot similar on all 4 of the corners. It's going to be reshaped.
That became a car wash.
I think the southern part became a car wash, and then one of them became a pawn shop. Yeah. So it is going to look very similar to that. It's got a similar zoning that we're requesting as well. So. Right. Shipley's and yes, correct. It'll be similar. I agree.
That's me.
Okay, other comments or questions? Okay, we've got a motion on the floor to approve item 7.7 on the first reading. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed by the same sign? All right, motion carries 7-0. I believe that concludes our business tonight. Mr. Garza, is
Yes, it does.
We have a open house tomorrow night. Ms. Sager, can you come up and provide details on that for just a moment, please?
Sure. We are having an open house for the Unified Development Code tomorrow night, 6:30, right here in the lobby at Citizens Tower. It's an opportunity for you to come talk to staff, talk to our consultant team who will be here, which is collaborative. It's a kind of go event. Come ask questions, give us your feedback on what you'd like to see in the code. And then, as you already mentioned, Thursday night, we have the joint city council and planning and zoning commission meeting at 5 o'clock here in council chambers, going over module 3 of the Unified Development Code. This goes over the sign ordinance, subdivision regulations, a lot of good information.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sager. So tomorrow night, 6:30 here, open house. Thursday night, 5 o'clock here for a joint meeting of this council and the planning and zoning commission. They're both open to the public, wide open. The only other thing I would mention is that if you have failed or have not had a chance yet to give input on the concept of a downtown civic park, the website that's taking that input is available through tomorrow. More than 1,000 people have provided input, so we want to get everybody's voice. Okay.
Where I think we need to repeat, especially for the people here who are opposed to some of these zone cases. Be sure to show up for second reading. You never know. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes change your mind.
Never know. Okay. It is 8:25 p.m. Our business is finished. It's a great day. Look at Texas. We're adjourned.